It's 6 o'clock Central Africa time, which means it's time to rise and shine right here on Channel Africa Radio, where we bring you the African perspective. And we're broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa on www.channelafrica.co.za. And also you can catch us on your mobile apps. Just go into your app store, look for SABC Plus, that's SABC Plus, and look for Channel Africa. And then look for us, rise and shine. And we've got quite a show. And to tell us all about it, I say good morning to Asanda, Beda.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday. I wish it was a Thursday. I'm saying that year-end fatigue is setting in now.
Do you know, it's quite a weird thing for me how quickly the years go by as you get older. My father used to tell me this all the time, and I didn't believe him. But my goodness, we're already in the middle of October. Towards the end of the year already.
Yeah.
It's scary.
And I'm laughing because I know the father jokes. My father used to say, when you were 20, I was 21. There's that joke. So what's coming up in this hour is that the military have seized power in Madagascar. We'll take a look at that story, one that we've been covering and following quite intensely. And the UN Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region warned that the ceasefire agreement between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda has collapsed. Those stories and more coming up. Let's say good morning firstly, though, for our news update to Jwalani Tulongwepe, and then following her will be Figile Lingwati with sports headlines.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The Democratic Republic of Congo and the M23 rebel group signed an agreement yesterday for the monitoring of an eventual permanent ceasefire. The agreement is a sign of progress in Qatar-mediated talks after the two sides missed an August 18th deadline to finalize a peace deal. Qatar has hosted multiple rounds of direct talks between the Congo government and the rebels going back to April, but they have so far dealt largely with preconditions and confidence-building measures. Congolese government spokesperson Patrick Muyaya confirmed the agreement had been signed. An army colonel in Madagascar has confirmed that the elite military unit CAPSAT has taken control of the island nation after President Andry Rajoelina fled the country following weeks of anti-government protests. Colonel Michael Randiarina says the military will be dissolving all institutions except the lower house of parliament, which earlier voted to impeach the president. The BBC's Sami Awani has the story.
Camp, we received reports that there were shots exchanged between different units, and that's because yesterday we saw this one unit, it's called CAPSAT. It urged other forces not to shoot at protesters but instead protect them. It is the same unit that escorted protesters to the Independence Square, where it was the first time the protesters had gone there. So today we've seen that we've had statement from the Prime Minister as well, urging all units to stay calm and support the Constitution.
Zambia has begun mass registration of voters ahead of its 2026 August general election. The mass registration of voters is said to capture close to 4 million eligible persons as the 23 million populated country hits the general polls next August. Secretary General of the immediate past ruling party, the Patriotic Front, Raphael Nakasinda.
First of all, the period is too short. When you look at the civic education and sensitization around this process of registration, information has been very scanty. But we are trying our best as Patriotic Front to encourage our members, supporters, and generally communities across the country to register. The registration of our people in terms of them getting their IDs, their national registration cards, which is a prerequisite to you registering for voters. The northern part and eastern part of the country, half of the country was more or less defranchised by way of supplying less materials to have that actualized.
And finally, a civil defense official in Gaza says at least 7 people have been killed by Israeli forces in 2 separate incidents. A Hamas spokesperson called the incidents a violation of the ceasefire. The second phase of US President Donald Trump's peace plan remains uncertain, but Trump said he will decide what he thinks is right on whether there should be a 2-state solution in the Middle East. UNICEF spokesperson Ricardo Peers says rebuilding will be a huge effort.
fixing and starting to rebuild the infrastructure that was destroyed, the lives of children that have been absolutely affected in a very destructive way. They've lost parents, they've been orphaned, they've lost loved ones, they've lost their homes, their schools, they've been killed and maimed at a scale that we haven't seen recently in many conflicts. The task is colossal.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Right, every day after the 6 o'clock news, we bring you the Africa Roundup, and this is where we take a look at the big stories that have played out across the continent in the last 24 hours. And the point of this is to make sure that you start your news day all caught up and that you haven't missed out on anything. And we use our team of journalists and reporters across the continent to make sense of all of it. And we start this morning with this story. An army commander who led a mutiny in Madagascar announced on Tuesday that the military had seized power after President Andry Rajoelina was impeached by Parliament and fled the country amid weeks of youth-led protests.
Randri Anirina, who led a mutiny of soldiers joining anti-government Gen Z demonstrators, said, quote, "We have taken power," on national radio. He added the military was dissolving all institutions except the lower house of parliament or National Assembly, which voted to impeach Rajoelina minutes earlier. Young protesters outside the capital's City Hall praised both the impeachment and the military takeover.
This is very good news for us, for activists, for all Madagascans. It's incredible because 2 weeks ago we were fighting tooth and nail with the military, and today we have won. This announcement deserves a national celebration.
Despite flying out on a French military jet, Rajoelina is refusing to step down.
The UN Special Envoy for the Great Lakes region, Huang Xia, has warned that the ceasefire agreement between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda is not being respected. He urged both sides to recommit to dialogue and de-escalation to prevent further instability in the region. Here's Huang Xia addressing the UN Security Council through an interpreter.
Promises have not all been upheld. In order to achieve a genuine tranquility, the parties to the conflict have resumed coordination. The humanitarian situation remains catastrophic. Humanitarian access remains problematic, and there have been grave human rights violations which continue to be perpetrated. The deteriorating situation on the ground highlights a dangerous trend which is liable to undermine regional security. There has been a shifting of the front lines towards the south of Kivu. This has given rise to risks of regional conflagration, which are liable to undermine all of the peace efforts that have been hitherto undertaken.
The African League of Ambassadors has been officially launched in Lusaka in Zambia. This with the aim of revitalizing Pan-African diplomacy and strengthening the continent's voice on the global stage. President Hakainde Hichilema described the League as a dynamic think tank with the potential to shape and enrich policymaking across Africa. Zambia's Foreign Affairs Minister is Mutambo Hayimbe, and he delivered the president's remarks after the launch.
We bear witness to a new platform envisaged by men and women who have carried the flag of their nations with pride and purpose across distant lands and in hallowed halls of multilateralism. The League of African Ambassadors, though embryonic in its function, carries with it the seeds of a noble mission to channel experience into strategy, memory into action, and vision into impact.
Every Tuesday morning on Muizenberg Beach in South Africa, a group of mothers swap the stresses of daily life for an hour of sea therapy. They take to the waves as part of a free surfing program that aims to boost women's mental well-being. Here's Fiona Joe with more.
The Mums on Board initiative has created a community for all ages, where for the hour, personal well-being comes first. 75-year-old Joycelyn Early, who taught herself to surf, expressed her gratefulness for the weekly experience.
I can't tell you what it means to catch a wave and what it means to actually stand up on your board and just glide in. I can't describe it. It's really tremendous. Wonderful feeling.
For Emily Inez, whose children have special medical needs, this hour helps her regulate her nervous system.
So when I surf, I feel like I get the ultimate dopamine boost. It ticks all the boxes for me, especially this group, because for women it's so important that we have community, and this is a community of moms surfing together.
And that's how we come to the end of this day's edition of the Africa Roundup. We'll do this again tomorrow after the 6 a.m. news here on Rise and Shine. Coming up, we zoom into some of the stories touched in the Africa Roundup, as well as those with a focus on the West African region. And we'll be speaking to an analyst there. Peter, our colleague, will be spearheading that conversation with Dr. David Matsanga.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Mgombea urais wa chama cha wananchi CUF Gambo Samatindo ameitaka serikali ya Tanzania kuweza kutoa msimamo wao wa wazi kuhusiana na matukio ya utekaji watu. Tamko hili la mgombea huyu wa CUF mnalichukuliaje na nini mtazamo wenu?
Haya ndio masuala ambayo sisi kama watetezi wa haki za binadamu au shirika la utetezi tunapenda sana, ni moja ya kazi ambayo tunaifanya.
Lakini tatizo hili limekuwa sugu kwa hivi karibuni. Hili linaleta tafsiri gani kwa nchi ya Tanzania kiujumla? Mnasimamia wapi mpaka hivi sasa, na je, mmekwisha kutoa tamko lolote?
Ndio, sisi tulitoa statement yetu. Sasa ni jambo la kutisha sana kuona mambo yanaendelea, na inatisha sasa hivi sana. Watu wanaonekana kukasirishwa sana na matukio ya namna hii.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Africa at Play with Neto and ETO Chemane.
I've witnessed something fresh, something exciting, and something very inspirational from the president of the country, William Ruto. Whenever athletes are performing to their best level, he always comes on board to reward those athletes, be it football, be it athletics, and not leaving it up to the sport ministry.
The president realizes that sports is a business, and for that reason, he also reduces the number of people who are jobless, because sports now is such a serious business, and for that reason commercialization of sports is a major way of improving or increasing employment opportunities for the young people, and that is why the president has been very persistent in trying as much as possible to inspire more sports personalities to reduce the baggage of the people who are struggling to get job opportunities in the country among the young people.
Francis FM Motegi, our correspondent from East Africa in Nairobi, Kenya.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, it's time now, every week at this time on a Wednesday, we give you a roundup of the key developments across West Africa. And to help us make sense of the political, economic and security shifts in the region, we're now joined live by Dr. Matsanga, who's a political scientist, conflict resolution specialist and observer of African dynamics. Dr. Matsanga, always good to talk to you. A very good morning to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you very much, Africa. Good morning, Africa, and good morning, the entire world.
So I know it's not West Africa, but I do think that it's a story that resonates, particularly in West Africa, given the amount of coups that have taken place in the region. Your thoughts on what's been happening in Madagascar and what it means for the continent in general that we're seeing this kind of shift in power. Something is missing that forces people onto the streets and then the military to intervene on their behalf.
Thank you very much. I was one of the few people with Chisano who hammered the Madagascar crisis when this DJ Joker seized the power and overthrew the elected government. You come by sword, you go by sword. And that one I told Chisano that this young man must start behaving, otherwise sometime to come. And I'm still here. But let me come to the point. Africa is managing what we call a volcano. We are managing a volcano. There is a big volcano down under there, steaming with a lot. Until we go back, entire Africa, let's go back, China style. I am sorry to say this. 40 years ago, China went back and started thinking afresh. What went wrong? Mao Zedong overthrew the kingdoms, removed them, took over a revolution. But what has he done for us? Africa must start thinking. And therefore, it came out. Today, China gives us food, supplies us money, lends us money. It was one of the poorest countries on planet Earth with one rice scheme in my country, Uganda. We were sharing that rice. Look at China today. Time has come for Africa to review. There is what we call fatigue evaluation in political science. Fatigue evaluation. Africa has reached that era. Before more and more of these coups appear, there is a volcano under Peter Ndoro.
So just ahead of these coups, there seems to be a lot of movement on the streets, and young people in particular seem to be leading the charge. They've been coined Gen Z movements based on what we saw in Kenya. And I'm just wondering if the older generation are paying attention, because Africa is a very young continent. The average age is 19. And young people have lost faith in our normal democratic processes because, sadly, they often get hijacked.
Yes, you see, the problem of Africa is dual. Those who vote and those who are voted. So we have that problem. The voters also select the wrong people. And those who are voted also ignore the voters. And therefore, in political science, such a clash, any expert like me who has done it up to the last IOT on planet Earth, I will tell you, my dear brother, that is supposed to produce a volcano that will erupt. Two, the institutions that we took over after independence, some of them remain the same. The laws remain the same. You see, we have even followed that every African country, we still have a colonial doctrine, leftovers, hangovers, that if you want to cross to South Africa, you must have an ID passport. You must have this, produce document, tell when your father was born and when your father died before you enter some African country. Those colonial divide and rule tactics are still, the younger generation now don't like to see that. We must move faster to change the situation, to give space. There's social media, there is everything that has come. You can't lead the people the way we used to lead them in the 60s when the Matsangas were growing up and others. You see, you saw the wave of coups in 1970. Idi Amin swept us out, swept my father and other people, Obote and others was out. Several coups occurred. Aronzi came in Nigeria. A Champong came in Ghana. You look, we are going back to that level. We shouldn't do that. We should now move faster, integrate Africa, create a harmonious movement. Some of the pressures that are in South Africa, the youth can move to Uganda and work. There's plenty of work in Ugandan chambers, plenty of work in Kenyan chambers, plenty of work in Ghana, plenty of work in Nigeria. All what we are doing, we are managing these situations, corruption, bad governance, is causing that type of wave.
So let's go to the DRC. When this latest peace agreement between DRC and Rwanda was signed, there were a lot of skeptics given the history, and it looks as if this current one is all but collapsed. Not a surprise, I'm guessing, but what does it mean in the bigger picture of things for this part of the world?
Matsanga, let me go back to my maker when I have told you the truth, Peter Ndoro. If you don't rearrange Congo, stop wasting our resources, period. I'm one of the few Africans who's proud. Kill me if you want. But I'm telling you, Congo is too big to be managed by a president who doesn't know the left, the right, the tail, the back. 2, Congo is too big. If we did in Yugoslavia, why are you fearing to say it? Why are you coming with pieces of paper that will collapse? You are managing Congo and you are saying there's a peace agreement. The president in Kinshasa is giving Mr. Kabila, the former president who gave him power, life sentence and a death sentence. How will you manage Congo? Rubbish. This time has come for us to tell the truth and tell some of these African brothers of ours that you are useless. How can you? What will Tshisekedi do to me? I worked with his father. What will he do to me? I'm better than him in education. What is he going to do? Let's tell him the truth. How do you sentence another man? You are looking for peace process, and then you sentence another one to death. You are creating insurgents. You are creating insurgents. So time has come. For me, I have said, and I will continue to say, whether I'm going near Angel Gabriel going to die, Congo needs to be divided or rearranged or given a new system. The current system, whether you do 2 million peace processes, there are 240 standing army, Peter Ndoro. They are waiting there. They are standing there to fight. What are you trying to do peace process for? And America, Trump, my friend Trump, stand up and smell of the coffee. You are the one causing more problems in Congo than anybody else. You are saying, give me the minerals, I'll give you mercenaries to go and guard who? Guard who? Guard who? Since 1961, even F. Kennedy was still alive. And, and he never managed the Congo. Who are you to manage the Congo? Divide Congo the Yugoslavian way. Let people have a state. The West does not like the East. They call them Tutsi. How are you going to manage the Congo? Tell me. Tell me. Anybody who has gone to school, unless you went to a school compound, not a classroom. Thank you.
All right, let's move to Cameroon. What do you think is going to happen next there? We've got the opposition leader, Issa Chiroma Bakary, declaring victory. And the question is, I guess, when the final results come out, will that be the story? Or will we see the continuation of Paul Biya, who might be nearly 100 by the time he finishes this term, if he's allowed to take victory here? What's your take on what's happening in this chapter of Cameroon's history?
Again, Cameroon is a story of bad colonialism. The French, British, UN, they left us a problem in Cameroon. I am one of the few people on planet Earth who has stood by the people of Southern Cameroon. You know that as the voting takes place, some people in Southern Cameroon never voted. They are under military occupation by the North French Cameroonians. Now, tell me what voting is that? Cameroon pretends to be a member of the Commonwealth. What member of the Commonwealth? What was the value of Commonwealth? Why do we be in the Commonwealth with a country that violates human rights of individuals? What country is this in the Commonwealth? I have written to the Commonwealth Secretary General and I told her we elected a good person When she reached London, she became a dangerous person. She doesn't know what to do. She's like that other woman of Bahamas, that lady, Patricia Scotland, who went to get money and ignored the human rights record. Mr. Ndoro, Brother Ndoro, there are no human rights record, good human rights record in Cameroon. 3,000 people, representing some of them. I'm representing them internationally. The 10 men were abducted from Nigeria, another Commonwealth country that is on the collapse, brought in, charged at 5 a.m., sentenced to life. And the 3,000 other people are languishing in prison, prisoners of war, not of conscience. They have never been sentenced. Then you call me, you are sending an observer team to observe over dead body and blood, stained election. You must be derailed mentality. You must be bribed. You are being bribed by Paul Biya. Paul Biya will not even accept. He's now keeping quiet, manipulating the results to announce himself, even when he's brain dead. He doesn't know where he is. This is a leader in Africa who has embarrassed us, whom the army, in fact, the army should move to such leaders, not to move to places where things are not a bit all right. Paul Biya is a very dangerous man. He doesn't know even Paul Biya where he is. He says, am I in Paris or am I in Switzerland? A man who rules the country from Switzerland, and while the country is in Africa. A man who comes to open a football match of African nations and flies back to Switzerland. Is that an African president or and the president of the Arabs?
All right, so very briefly, because we're running out of time, so many stories I wish we had had time to look at, but I am curious about Senegal's sovereign bonds dropped after Moody's flagged liquidity risks. With many West African nations under debt pressure, how vulnerable is the region, do you think, to this kind of financial contagion?
Peter Ndoro, when these two younger men took over power in Senegal, I was one of the few people who were their friends. I stood by them. I campaigned for them to be released on your television stations. And thank you very much, South Africa. South African television and your station and this I said so many things to get those two men, Faye and Sonko, out of prison. But Faye has disappointed me. And that is the beginning of his end. He's going. You have seen, he has not listened to my advice. He never listened. He went to the French again. He went begging them. So the French are manipulating him. And most of these are coming as a result. The people inside, the two are not working nicely. One policy wanted to go radical shift, like Burkina Faso and Mali. They wanted a change. They wanted to break off relationship with France. Faye refused. Faye still relies on France. France is in turmoil. And therefore, you are bound to have the economy back on the ground. Signals are coming out that they are not very well. They are not doing very well. Therefore, their bond is becoming useless on the international scene. Therefore, I think there is only one solution. They must stand alone, get off the French franc, using it, come up with new methods, economic measures that will alleviate the lives of the people of Senegal. Otherwise, I think there is also another problem coming from that one of the oldest countries in the west of Africa, Senegal. It is not doing very well at all. Peter Ndoro, my brother, veteran journalist.
Dr. Matsanga, time is never on our side, and so we're just going to have to leave it there. But it's always great talking to you. Thanks so much for your insights and contributions every week.
Thank you very much, Peter. But one of the things I live with Africans, African Union is dead. It can't survive. It can't help the political office, Peter Ndoro of African Union, they don't know where the coup is coming tomorrow or not. They don't advise these countries. There is a man there called Bankole who has been there for 30 years. Let the Africans remove him. Let the youth go for Mr. Bankole in African Union in order for him to wake up, to give us signals on when trouble is coming on our continent. That's the role of the political security and other committees of the African Union, but it is dead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matanga. Always great talking to you. Thank you so much indeed. All right, and that's where we'll leave the West Africa Roundup for today. Right now, though, it's time for your news headlines. We say good morning once again to Chwalane Tulongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Making headlines, the United Nations has expressed concern about any unconstitutional changes of power in Madagascar. The Limpopo government in South Africa says 17 of the 43 bodies of people who were killed in a recent bus crash have been identified. The bus crashed after the driver lost control in Chambudzi Valley, a mountainous stretch on the N1 near Louis Trichardt on Sunday afternoon. And finally, Hamas has handed over the bodies of 4 more hostages that were held in Gaza. This brings the number of bodies to 8. I will have details on these and other stories at 7 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's say good morning to Fikile Lingwati for our first full update in the world of sports.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, guys. We begin with good news in South Africa. 15 years since South Africa last appeared in the FIFA World Cup finals and some 23 years since they last qualified for the showpiece. Bafana will be back at football's top table. South Africa beat Rwanda 3-0 in their final CAF Group C World Cup qualifier at the Mbombela Stadium in South Africa's Mpumalanga province to top the group and progress to the World Cup finals in North America next year. Talent Mbata, Oswin Apolis scored in the first half to send Mzansi into rapture and ignite World Cup dreams to the length and breadth of the country. Evidence Makhupa, the third Orlando Pirates player on target on the night, scored from a corner in the second half to seal the win. Bafana coach Hugo Bros was a relieved man at the end of the match.
It feels wonderful. We all knew that we could do it. We believed in ourselves. And I think he showed from the beginning of the game that he wanted to win that game.
And Zimbabwe coach Michael Nies remains optimistic about his team's chances at the upcoming Africa Cup of Nations despite a disappointing 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying campaign. The Warriors failed to register a single win in Group C, concluding their run with a narrow 1-0 defeat to Lesotho in Polokwane on Monday night. And coach Nies has urged supporters not to lose faith.
They must rally behind. We are in a very difficult group. We have South Africa, very strong. We saw last Friday, very strong team. We managed to hold them. Egypt, most likely with Nigeria, the best attacking team in Africa. Angola, also very dangerous team. Maybe they're going also a little bit through a valley right now. Every team which plays at the AFCON, I don't find any other team, any team different, wants to go to the second round.
And finally, Irish Olympic swimmer Shane Ryan has joined the Enhanced Games, a multi-sport competition that will allow athletes to use performance-enhancing substances without being subject to drug tests. Ryan, who was born in the USA, competed in 3 successive Olympic Games for Ireland before announcing his retirement from the sport earlier this month. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The United States was very vocal at the beginning of South Africa's G20 presidency, and this is largely due to strained relations with South Africa at the time, that they were not really keen on participating. Where do they stand right now?
The US is planning to take over the presidency of the G20 next year, and our understanding from them is that they intend to continue to do so, and therefore it is quite difficult then to be in a situation where you are not attending deputies' meetings or discussions during our presidency and then to take over the presidency next year. From a finance track perspective, there has been engagement. We've been working on a communique last week and this week here in Zimbabwe. What's important about that is that it's a consensus document, and so all the members in the room have to agree to the language that is used there, and our US colleagues have been part of those discussions and negotiations.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Right, let's get our first look at what's been happening in the world of business, economics, commerce. And at the business desk this morning, we say good morning to Buntle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thanks, Peter. Good morning and a very good morning to our listeners. In our top business story this morning, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says Cape Town in the Western Cape province has done worse than the average of all metros in the country in making a positive impact on the lives of its residents. Ramaphosa was replying to a question in the National Council of Provinces. The President cited Stats SA data and a budget analysis of the city of Cape Town, which found that in the decade between 2011 and 2022, Cape Town performed worse than the average of all metros in expanding access to services such as refuse removal, pipe water, electricity and flush toilets. He said while that metro has performed well in terms of its audited financial statements, what matters is the impact on people's lives.
On a per capita investment in infrastructure and service delivery, it is significantly lower in townships and informal settlements. It may well say that it has spent billions, but on a per capita basis, it continues to follow the racial patterns of the past. Because in the past, the apartheid government spent more money in white areas than it did in black areas. And the analysis says this is continuing right here in Cape Town.
Libya's central bank says it's authorized the printing of $11 billion to ensure cash liquidity was available in a balanced and stable manner. According to a statement by the bank, about 25 billion dinars of the total has been received and distributed to banks, while 14 billion dinars was expected to arrive from overseas before the end of the year. The remaining 21 billion will be imported in 2026. Libya has substantial oil wealth but has suffered from liquidity shortages for years, meaning residents often have to line up outside banks to withdraw cash and collect salaries. Ethiopia says that debt restructuring negotiations with its bondholders has failed to produce a deal due to ongoing differences over the terms. The East African nation defaulted on its sole international bond in late 2023 after it opted for a restructuring under the G20's Common Framework Initiative, which requires comparable terms for official sector creditors and commercial bondholders. Ethiopia's government says despite the lack of a deal, substantial progress has been made. The government adds it hopes talks will resume in future. Egypt has a plan for the drilling of 480 exploratory oil wells on the basis of investments totaling 5.7 billion over the next 5 years. This as the country seeks to reverse declining production. Egypt has announced agreements with international energy companies on oil and gas exploration over recent months, including an agreement with oil giants Eni and BP to start exploration activities in the Mediterranean Sea. A statement from the ministry does not give detail on the source of the investment, but reveals that 101 wells were scheduled for 2026. Further afield, the International Monetary Fund has slightly upgraded its global economic outlook, stating that U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs have been less damaging than expected. The IMF has, however, warned of risks ahead. The BBC's Michelle Fleury has the details.
The global economy is still growing, but slightly less than we have previously seen. That is true for many developing countries and developed countries. So in that sense, is pretty rosy. But here's the problem. They say that growth would have been greater had some of the policies we've seen introduced in the last 6 to 8 months, whether that's immigration or trade, would have been even greater in the absence of that.
Now, in our first look at the indicators this morning, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,460 naira. In Botswana, the dollar is trading at 13 pula 28. Kenya at 128 shilling and 28. And in Zambia, it's at 22 kwacha 63. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 47. In Russia, it's trading at 79 rubles 98. India, 88 rupees 76. In China, it's trading at 7 yuan 12. And in South Africa, it's at 17 rand 38 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading slightly stronger at $4,188 per ounce this morning. Platinum also up at $1,666 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $62.20 a barrel. And those are your business news. I'll be back with another update in the next hour. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Buntle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa.
Our G20 fact for this morning is the past G20 summits have yielded important engagements, such as the automatic exchange of tax information and the action plan to combat base erosion and profit shifting in 2013. The 2024 summit in Brazil highlighted initiatives like the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty and reaffirmed commitments to the Paris Agreement. And that's our G20 fact for this 15th of October.
G20 in Africa, exclusive to Channel Africa, championing Africa through solidarity, equality, and sustainability.
I
August.
don't know what on earth. You see, I'm telling you, it's the year-end fatigue. Even the brain is not braining properly, but we will survive.
But you know, this year-end thing is a fiction. It's just another day.
But I feel it. I honestly feel it. When it's like October, I start feeling more tired than
I'm
at the beginning
by
of the
that.
year.
I wonder what you people out there feel like. Do you feel for sure that a year starts in January, ends in December? Or is it just a calendar? Yeah, I'm curious. Anyway, let's take a look at this story in South Africa. South African small, medium businesses say that they want to explore the export market. However, they don't know how to go about reaching that market. Now, this came out of the Export Expo Symposium that was held by the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition in Midrand, and that's just north of Johannesburg. The department's Deputy Minister, Zuko Godlimpi, said that the department is doing all it can to assist exporters and those who are keen to export but still need more to be done. Notando Magudulela has more.
The Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, Deputy Minister Zuko Godlimpi, says the Export Expo comes at a time when South Africa is at an economic and trade crossroad. This as the United States President Donald Trump imposed a 30% tariff on all South African goods exported to the U.S. with some exemptions. Godlimpi says this move has threatened over 30,000 jobs and risked a fallout on long-term relationships. Godlimpi says while this is the case, this tragedy opens up opportunities for small businesses to tap into the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. He says This will grow trade between South Africa and its neighboring countries. Kodlimbi says this is because the export market is critical to the country's economic growth as it guarantees jobs, industrialization, and the future prosperity of millions of South Africans.
As a general rule, export-led growth creates a virtuous cycle. When our companies export, they learn to meet international quality standards, they adopt cutting-edge technologies and innovate constantly. Export-oriented firms pay higher wages, invest more in training and create higher quality jobs. They generate the foreign exchange we need for critical imports and help stabilize our currency. A strong export sector is fundamental to everything else we want to achieve as a nation.
One exhibitor at the expo, Sijeng Noche, owner and founder of Seated by Jenki, says she wants to expand her business to North Africa but lacks the know-how.
We do have big ambitions to export. We think our products are good quality and things the export market would definitely enjoy. However, we haven't received enough information on how to get into the exporting market. We'd like to also do e-commerce via e-commerce marketplaces, via Amazon, selling overseas also to the USA markets. But we do have a big interest in the Africa markets because we think they'll definitely enjoy our products.
Anton Kotsia, founder of medical device manufacturers, says Africa needs to get its own standardization to diversify exports, just as South Africa did with the South African Bureau of Standards.
We know of the CE mark. All you need to do is look at how many products have a CE mark on it. And CE doesn't stand for Chinese export. It stands for Certificate European. And what we need to do is we need to create an African version of the same trademark. Like we have an SABS trademark. We want a similar value proposition for products that are made in Africa. And it's not just medical devices, it's cosmetics, it's cosmeceuticals, it's herbal products, which is called complementary medicines. These are areas where African manufacturers are very strong. They believe in herbal remedies. But in order to export them from one country to another is problematic.
Meanwhile, the department says it has developed a butterfly strategy which aims to diversify the markets for South African goods. It says this strategy is a call to action. Nothando Makutulela, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Reactions have been streaming in from various health stakeholders following the suspension of the head of Department of Health and Wellness in South Africa's Gauteng province. Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi suspended Lisiba Arnold Molotana with immediate effect on Tuesday. Lesufi says the suspension is part of an ongoing assessment of officials, but it is alleged the suspension relates to the country's Special Investigating Unit or SIU work in his department, which fingered him in alleged corruption and maladministration. Sisi Sechalo has more on the story.
South Africa woke up to the news of the suspension of Health and Wellness HOD in the Gauteng province. The Gauteng government could not give reasons for his specific suspension, but needless, they expressed that they support the work of the country's law enforcement agencies. Elijah Mhlanga is the Gauteng government spokesperson.
This action taken by the Premier is part of an ongoing assessment of officials, the work they do, the monitoring of targets, as well as their conduct. As a province, we remain committed to upholding the highest standards of accountability and ethical leadership. And at the same time, we remain steadfast in our commitment to root out maladministration. We'll continue to monitor the work done by our senior officials, and as and when the need arises, action will be taken.
The Democratic Alliance Party in the Gauteng province says it is disappointing that the Gauteng Health and Wellness HOD will still be drawing a salary. They insist that he should have been fired instead. DA spokesperson for health in the Gauteng provincial legislature, Madeleine Hickling, says the suspension comes a little too late.
Let's put it this way. He is a non-performing head of department.
He has had high-level protection from Panyaza Lesufi, the Premier of Gauteng, for a very long time, despite the fact that his name has been linked to numerous scandals and an SIU investigation. And the SIU investigation is into allegations that he received more than 10 million rand, a bribe to approve a contract together with other officials in his department. His lifestyle audit has not been made known to either the members of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, the Health Portfolio Committee, or in fact the citizens of Gauteng. We now believe that he has failed that lifestyle audit, and it's on those grounds that he was put onto immediate suspension.
The National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, NEHAWU, have welcomed the suspension. They say the move comes just in the wake of their march to the departmental offices recently, where they were demanding change. Gauteng Secretary of NEHAWU in the country, Mzikai Sechonchi, says they believe the move may herald a new dawn for the department. He adds that someone must be held accountable for the rot that has been happening in that department.
It's our view that this decision by the Premier is in line with what we demanded as NEHAWU, that we demand decisive action that shows that the government is serious about fighting corruption, maladministration, making sure that the people of Gauteng who deserve better health care, get what they deserve from the department in the form of the services that they deserve. That money that is designed to help communities must be used for those communities and nothing else. That the provision of health care must be treated with urgency. So the decision by the Premier for us is a very important development that is welcome to us and must lead to that department moving in the right direction and correcting all those things that were highlighted in our memorandum.
Meanwhile, an acting HOD has been appointed by the name of Dr. Darion Barclay. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekgalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Zambia has begun mass registration of voters ahead of the 2026 August general elections. Now, the mass registration of voters is set to capture close to 4 million eligible persons as the 23 million populated state heads for the general polls next August. Our Zambia correspondent is Arthur Davis Sukopo. He gives us an understanding of the process of elections in Zambia. He's in Lusaka.
Indeed, elections do not begin on a poll day. They begin with registration.
That is Electoral Commission of Zambia Chairperson Mangala Zalomis, State Council, affirming that the crucial vote of 2026 in Zambia has set its wheels in motion. Zambia has begun mass registration of voters, which will run for a period of 3 weeks. And it is through this exercise that 3.5 million persons are expected to be captured, in addition to the over 7 million registered in 2020 for the 2021 general election. And the key or eligible targets are persons that are over 18 years of age or would have turned 18 on or before 30th April 2026. This exercise is crucial for the country that has a 5-year election cycle, as it also spells out population growth and determines social and economic dynamics in a 23 million populated state. Electoral Body Chairperson Zalomis says this exercise forms part of a well-planned and transparent 2026 general election roadmap, as she further underscores the importance of the process.
This is how we weave democracy together, one citizen at a time, one registration at a time.
Stakeholders weigh in this matter, but with notes of fair coverage. Richo Omulwani of the Anti-Voter Apathy Project gives his organization's perspective.
It's a great milestone for the people of Zambia that they should be able to register as voters, especially the young people, as AVAP, we want to encourage all those that are eligible to ensure that they are able to register as voters and vote in the 2026 elections.
Political parties acknowledge that this is a duly requirement and is calling for all eligible voters to register in numbers. Rafona Kachinda is Secretary General of the immediate past ruling party, the Patriotic Front.
First of all, the period is too short. When you look at the civic education and sensitization around this process of registration, information has been very scanty. But we are trying our best as Patriotic Front to encourage our members, supporters, and generally communities across the country to register.
However, Mr. Kachinda raises these concerns of alleged defranchising the opposition.
The registration of our people in terms of them getting their IDs, their national registration cards, which is a prerequisite to you registering voters. You know, the northern part and eastern part of the country, half of the country was more or less defranchised by way of supplying less materials to have that actualized.
Though the official election campaign period is 90 days before the poll date, the mood in the country from all political parties, especially their aspiring candidates, is already heightening up. With no clearer presidential opponent against incumbent Hakainde Hichilema, who got into power in 2021 after beating Edgar Lungu, now deceased, Hichilema is aware that he is likely to have a challenge where election of his party MPs, as concerns continue to grow that many of his current crop have underperformed and hence face rejection from voters. Hichilema was on Sunday while addressing party members in Lusaka, pleading that people should elect his MPs too.
How is the president going to run a government? The president needs MPs. Ndiye suti yo 2026 tifuna suti.
Reporting for Channel Africa in Lusaka, Zambia, I'm Arthur Davis, Scopo.
All right. Well, in the next hour that we head into, in about 2 minutes, we'll be looking at Madagascar's President Andre Rajoelina, who has reportedly fled the country. We get analysis on that story, as well as opposition candidate in Cameroon's presidential elections, Issa Chiroma, who has declared victory and has urged President Paul Biya to accept defeat. Interesting times. Very busy continent we have.
Do you know what happened on this day in 1993?
Tell us.
I'll give you a clue. Two very prominent people in terms of leading South Africa to democracy in the final days. They got a Nobel Prize today. Who was that?
It was our former President Nelson Mandela and Botha.
F.W. de Klerk?
De Klerk, yes.
He was president at the time. And there was a lot of controversy around de Klerk getting this Peace Prize. But you know what? I think he had to deal with a lot of backlash from his own people, and I think that perhaps isn't what is fully appreciated about his role. Yes, the apartheid machine was brutal. It did everything that he did. But I do think he played a part in getting us over the line in the end. So, yeah, 1994... was when South Africa became fully democratic. But 1993, on this day, President Nelson Mandela, he was just the head of the ANC at that stage, and the current president at the time, F.W. de Klerk, were recognized for their foundational work in setting a new path for South Africa.
And it is now 7 o'clock Central African time. We are Rise and Shine, coming to you live from our South African studios in Johannesburg as Channel Africa. www.channelafrica.co.za is where you can connect with us. We live stream on YouTube. At Channel Africa 1 is the handle there. And you can find us on the SABC Plus on your mobile phone. I'm Asanda, Beda.
And I'm Peter Ndoro, and as we were saying a short while ago, a lot of things happening across the continent, and I'm really curious now about what's happening in Madagascar, what's the way forward. We're going to be speaking to somebody who knows the country very well, a former South African ambassador to Madagascar. And then also in Cameroon, the opposition leader there has declared victory. Results only due, I think, officially in about 12 days' time. What is going to be happening in between, and what does this all mean? We'll be unpacking that this half an hour. But first, let's catch you up with your news with Jwalane Tulongwepe. And also, we'll be catching you up with your sport with Fikile Lingwati.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. The United Nations has expressed concern about any unconstitutional changes of power in Madagascar. Madagascar's military earlier said it has seized power, while President Andry Rajoelina, who earlier reportedly fled the country, insisted that he was staying in power. UN spokesperson Farhan Haq says if a coup was in fact underway, the UN would stand against it.
We would be concerned about any unconstitutional change of power in Madagascar, but we'll continue to monitor the developments there. The Secretary General, as you know, has called on all Malagasy stakeholders to work together to reach a peaceful settlement to the ongoing crisis and its root causes. We're trying to see exactly what happens once the dust is settled. Obviously, if there is a coup underway, we would stand against that. We're concerned about any unconstitutional changes of power. From our standpoint as the UN, we're ready to collaborate with Madagascar, along with the African Union and the Southern African Development Corporation, for the restoration of peace and stability in the country.
South Africa's suspended Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection, Shadrack Sibiya, has refuted allegations of being part of criminal cartels. Sibiya was being grilled by members of the ad hoc committee probing concerns about national security. He was asked whether he was in favour of the disbandment of the KwaZulu-Natal Political Killings Task Team.
In the South African police?
I don't know of any.
So you've never been asked to investigate or not investigate anybody?
I've never been tasked to investigate anybody, any official from the side of the minister.
In your view, is the top management of South African police capable of running the police in the best interests of South Africans?
Yes, they are capable. When I look at the statistics and in the meetings that I've said, where we said as a team, when we're really working and we're working hard, there's a difference, there's hard work that is being done.
The Limpopo government in South Africa says 17 of the 43 bodies of people who were killed in a recent bus crash have been identified. The bus crashed after the driver lost control in the Chambudzi Valley, a mountainous stretch of road on the N1 near Louis Trichardt on Sunday afternoon. The bus, which was travelling from Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape province, was supposed to pass through Zimbabwe on its way to Malawi. Pathologists are expected to conclude their post-mortem examinations today. The Premier spokesperson Tili Vali Mauba says the process of identifying bodies is continuing.
17 families have arrived at Chilidzini Hospital to identify their loved ones. The identification process will continue on Wednesday for the remaining families. Identification team has taken photographs of all the deceased, and the provincial government is encouraging families who are searching for their loved ones to visit the hospital as part of family identification. It is anticipated that by Wednesday, the forensic pathology teams will have concluded with the post-mortem examinations.
Zambia has begun mass registration of voters ahead of its 2026 August general election. The mass registration of voters is set to capture close to 4 million eligible persons as the 23 million populated country heads to the general polls next August. Secretary General of the immediate past ruling party, the Patriotic Front, Raphael Nakasinda.
First of all, the period is too short. When you look at the civic education and sensitization around this process of registration, information has been very scanty. But we are trying our best as Patriotic Front to encourage our members, supporters, and generally communities across the country to register. The registration of our people in terms of them getting their IDs national registration cards, which is a prerequisite to you registering for voters. The northern part and eastern part of the country, half of the country was more or less defranchised by way of supplying less materials to have that actualized.
And finally, Hamas has handed over the bodies of 4 more hostages that were held in Gaza. This brings the number of bodies to 8. The bodies are being transported and transferred to a forensic institute in Tel Aviv for identification. There was anger in Israel on Monday when Hamas returned just 4 of the 28 bodies held in Gaza throughout the war. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Wepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, Bafana booked their ticket to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and Botswana's top athletes have qualified for the Ultimate Championship in Hungary. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, it's 6 minutes past 7, and as we've been saying, so much has been happening on the continent. If it's not coup d'etats, there's always an election taking place, given that there's 54 countries on the continent. Well, one happened recently, and that was in Cameroon. And opposition candidate Issa Chiroma has declared victory in Cameroon's presidential election, urging President Paul Biya to accept defeat and respect the will of the voters. Chiroma, a former government minister who broke ranks with the Biya earlier this year, praised citizens for defying intimidation at the polls and called on the military and civil servants to remain loyal to the republic, not the regime. The government has not responded, but the Minister of Territorial Administration warned that any unilateral announcement of results could be considered high treason, whilst the Constitutional Council will confirm the official outcome by the 26th of October. Well, to discuss what all of this could mean for Cameroon's political future, we're now joined in Yaoundé by political analyst Paul Anchang. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad to be there this morning with you, Rise and Shine.
So, what are your thoughts on Mr. Chiroma declaring victory? Is there enough evidence in terms of independent tallies that could support his claim?
Well, as of this moment, there's not officially enough proof to be able to back some of his claims, because with the Cameroon elections, there are over 31,600 polling stations actually, and you need what we call scrutiners, which are observers, and 2 from each political party to be able to cover each polling station as an observer, to be able to sign the report that they observed the report and what happened at the polling station when the polling station closes at 6 p.m. So as of now, officially, some of the polling stations have still not been able to officially forward to the departmental counting commissions all of their polling results really by that report. So as of this moment, they are still receiving some of those official reports. So it's very difficult to be able to officially have all the 31,655 polling station reports. So that's a little bit officially very difficult to do. But per Issa Chiroma's political party, the FSNC, they say they do have some of the polling station results based on the observers, which they kept at the different polling stations, and they observed some of the tendencies and the results, because it's important to realize at the polling station, once the polling station is closed, the counting is actually open. So which means the observers of the political parties and the members of the commission actually begin the counting in a transparent manner as well. So equally as well, Chiroma's party, they're saying that they have official polling reports from where they participated and they had a momentum. The other political party, the incumbent political party, is equally saying they have polling station results. But we're yet to see if really, in terms of the majority of the official polling station reports, a political party has the majority of those reports because there are over 31,000 polling station reports that are really needed to be able to undoubtedly, for political parties, say that officially they have sort of the majority in these results. Mind you, as well, but Cameroon's electoral code and constitution, it's really only the Constitutional Council that can officially read the live results, official results, and the polling reports really are officially given to them because in these commissions, on counting commissions, you have magistrates and you have representatives of the Constitutional Council. That's the electoral process procedure. So we are still kind of waiting. It is true. It has been a lot of enthusiasm by both of the political parties, but throughout the national territory in Cameroon, people have gotten back to their day-to-day activities. Really.
So I wonder, is there something different, excuse me, about this particular election process? In the past, we wouldn't have even bothered speculating. We would have said Paul Biya is going to win by whatever means necessary. Is there something different about this election, and especially given that the opposition figure used to be so close in government? He knows where the bodies are buried and what usually happens during this period in terms of managing the result.
Like, yeah, of course, you rightly said. He says he knows where the bodies are buried. I think what's in contention here is Article 133 of Cameroon's electoral code. Now, Article 133 of Cameroon's electoral code actually says that when the polling stations are closed, the results in that polling station can be known. So what you have here is the observers or a political party that's capable of covering or sending representatives in most of the polling stations can therefore be able to ascertain to say, well, we are able to win this polling station. And so that's what we have here. And Issa Chiroma, who's been, like you rightly said, a former member of government, a former minister of communication for the regime as well, knows most of the members of the regime. Now he's in the opposition as well. So therefore, that's where we really are seeing the contention. Equally, another silent aspect also is, most of the registered voters in these elections were actually very young. In 2018, most of the voters in this election were probably not probably able to vote, but now because the voting age in Cameroon is as of 20 years old. So we have seen maybe as of 2018 to 2025, which is 7 years, most of these voters were able to register themselves to vote and participated in the vote as well. So that's why we are really contention here. So there's really a contention between Article 133 of Cameroon's electoral code, which says that the reports in a polling station can be known, whether there be the statistics of that report. Now, there are actually 3 copies of a report that are gotten at the end of the polling station given to each political party and a member of the Electoral Commission. Now, Article 137 of the same electoral code actually states that it's only the Constitutional Council that can actually officially give the results of the total elections and the winner of the elections. So what we're seeing here, as you rightly said, is Mr. Chiroma trying as much as possible as well to be able to use Article 133. And we equally see the incumbent, President Paul Biya, and the political party also saying they're waiting for the official results and that it's impossible for any political party to officially within 2-3 days of the election have the reports from 31,000 polling stations as well. So really, that's what we're seeing in contention here. Article 133 of Cameroon's electoral code and Article 137 of Cameroon's electoral code 133, saying that the polling station, what happened at the polling station can be known, and Article 137 saying only the Constitutional Council can announce the official results. And mind you, to be able to have this, really, it's only a political party that has been able to cover most of the polling station. In this particular election, we've seen that really only these 2 political parties, that is the political party of Issa Chiroma, that was able to cover probably over 1,000 polling stations, and the other ruling incumbent party, the TPTM, as well, are able to cover most of the polling stations. Because to cover most of the polling stations in an election in Cameroon, in the presidential, you need 60,000 observers, which means at least 2 observers in a polling station. So that's quite a task as well. So being able to mobilize 60,000 observers to man the polling stations to observe for a political party, whether they be the militants or the sympathizers, is not an easy task to be able to count in terms of logistics throughout the national territory in Cameroon.
And perhaps finally, one thing that is hardly ever spoken about or spoken about enough is the English question. Did the English-speaking people participate in this election? And also, what does a result here actually mean? If Paul Biya stays in, is it business as usual? How to deal with the Anglophone Cameroon? If Chiroma wins, could there be a new turn, or is Cameroon just going to carry on as it's carried on in dealing with the English-speaking parts of the country going forward?
Thank you. That's a very important question. Actually, as a political analyst, for me, it's a very sensitive question because it is true Issa Chiroma proposed something in his campaign, really. He went into the English-speaking regions and told most of the voters there that he was in negotiation and was talking to some of the separatist leaders. The separatist leaders do say that they have not really been talking to him. So it's a controversial issue as well, because the Anglophone registered voters on the ground have been facing ghost towns, which is lockdowns. So their capacity to really mobilize people to go and vote on that voting day, a lot of times, sometimes is questionable as well. So for me, in terms of the resolution of the Anglophone crisis, it is a very sensitive issue because most Anglophones themselves, in terms of a referendum, in terms of a representative, have not been able to speak out. Now, we've had maybe in the past years, the Anglophone, the Grand National Dialogue, as you would call it, that was initiated by the Prime Minister of Cameroon, who is Anglophone, actually, he's from the English-speaking regions. So the incumbent, President Paul Biya, has sent his Prime Minister to the English-speaking regions many times to say they're still seeking resolutions to the problems. We equally have what we have, an effect of the diaspora. So in the English-speaking regions, they have a very, very strong diaspora, which means people from the English-speaking regions that leave out of Cameroon. They have a strong majority and they have an influence really in the English-speaking zones as well, because that's where most of those registered voters in the English-speaking regions actually listen to. So to me, it is yet to be seen really if any political candidate would be able to maybe change or bring a stop to the ghost towns or have actually open negotiations with the separatist fighters. As of this moment, the separatist fighters officially haven't said they have been talking to either. Each political candidate has been saying they can be able to solve the issue. Other political candidates bringing different solutions to it, but officially we haven't really seen in terms of a negotiation, as I would like to call it, where a party, maybe also a representative from the separatist fighters, has said they are actually talking to a political candidate or a political party for the resolution. We've not equally seen a civil society representative from the English-speaking regions equally speak out. I think that's where the difficulty really is, having a transparent negotiation by either a political party, a civil society person, or a separatist fighter to be able to talk about the Anglophone crisis and the issue in this presidential election.
Paul, that's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you so much indeed for your thoughts and insights on Cameroon today. Thanks for your time.
No, thank you very much.
That was the Yaoundé-based political analyst Paul Anchang unpacking for us the situation in Cameroon at this time.
Let the good times roll. From the 10th of October, make a note. Channel Africa is stepping into a brand new era with the launch of our upgraded website and app. It's easy, fresh, and always on your fingertips. Wherever you are in the world, Africa's voice is just a click away. The future of Channel Africa goes live from the 10th of October. Don't miss the moments. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
South Africa's Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Zuko Dlimpi, says the country stands at a crucial crossroads as new export tariffs threaten jobs and economic stability. Speaking at the opening of the Department of Trade and Competition's 3-day Export Symposium and Expo in Johannesburg, South Africa, Dlimpi acknowledged the challenges posed by the recent 30% export tariffs and global uncertainty, but added that South Africa has the resources, talent and entrepreneurial drive to rise above current obstacles. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
As global markets fluctuate and trade barriers multiply, the stakes for South Africa and Africa could not be higher. The decisions and partnerships to be forged at this symposium will play a vital role in determining whether the nation can transform its export sector from vulnerability to strength and turn a moment of crisis into a catalyst for renewal. The symposium, taking place at Gallagher Convention Center, brings together government, business and trade experts to tackle export barriers and explore strategies for sustainability, export-led growth across Africa and beyond. South Africa's Deputy Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Zuko Dlimpi, acknowledged the challenges posed by the recent US 30% export tariffs and global uncertainty, but struck an optimistic tone.
Stand at a crossroads, and the challenges are real. As we stand now, the outstanding US tariffs threaten jobs, they threaten global uncertainty, and it creates volatility. Competition is fierce, and climate change creates new barriers. Infrastructure constraints limit our export capacity. But I want us to conclude on an optimistic and determined foot. South Africa has overcome far greater challenges. We have resources, capabilities, and entrepreneurial energy that most countries can only dream of. We have a sophisticated financial sector, a world-class logistics system that we are improving, talented designers and engineers, productive agricultural land, vast mineral wealth, and 60 million people whose potential has barely been tapped.
He said South Africa must diversify its export market to all continents, with Africa as a preferred target market.
South Africa must transform from an economy overly dependent on a handful of markets into a diversified, sophisticated exporter of high-value goods and services to every continent, starting with Africa. This will require sustained effort, significant investment, and unwavering commitment. Of course, there will be setbacks, but there will also be successes when South African products win in competitive global markets. The President of the Republic, President Cyril Ramaphosa, has set a vision for us, and today's sessions will provide knowledge and strategies that we will have to improve upon.
Brand South Africa's Chief Operations Officer, Neville Maki, urged delegates to leverage on the opportunities the African Continental Free Trade Area is offering.
With the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, of course, that has been enforced, it's very important for us to realize intra-Africa trade. And today I'm talking purely intra-Africa trade because that is very, very important for us as a destination. When African countries trade with themselves, they exchange more manufactured and processed goods and knowledge transfer and create more value addition. And of course, you understand the African market even more. Trade diversification of exports is also very, very important, specifically for us within the continent.
Furthermore, Maki echoed that the agri-products exports to overseas markets have been affected, opening opportunities to diversify into African markets.
So in terms of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, it offers potential for, of course, our agri-products. The program director in her opening remarks indicated that, of course, there's the global shifts in terms of trade in global markets. There's a little bit of a chill in certain markets, but that creates an opportunity for us to diversify and look at other markets. And the agri sector and agricultural products are the ones that are also affected by those chills that we have been experiencing. Now, even more so, that we now focus on exporting into the continent to ensure that we diversify in terms of our markets.
Some delegates have welcomed the gathering and are encouraged by South Africa's resilient economy amid crippling, sweeping U.S. tariffs, which paves way for the expansion of an African market. Collins Mamadi is the CEO of a logistical company, New Waves Import and Export, clearing based at the OR Tambo International Airport.
This symposium actually came at the right time with this backlash from the US and the tariff challenges. So I think this is a very good opportunity for the South African government to show that they are really pushing back on all these challenges and also giving the SMEs, exporters opportunity to push and also sell South African products to the continent and beyond.
Amid the recent global economic shift, and with Africa having an abundance of critical minerals and massive agro-produce, he too is advocating for a rapid diversification for a niche African market.
We need it now because when you look at globally, Africa is where the natural resources, the minerals, everything, even in terms of agriculture, is being produced and taken to the world. So I think it's a hard time. We use our platform as South Africa and the power of Africa to encourage other African countries and sell within each other, get rid of these challenges of tariff and create more opportunity for more people to get into employment, get into business. Because by creating more opportunity and producing like South Africa has been producing to other African countries, it seems to cut the interest of African countries looking to Europe, Asia for what they need, where they can get it here. Because South Africa has got the capacity and they know how to get these things running.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
The global economy is expected to grow at a rate of 3.2% this year, while uncertainty about its stability and trajectory remain acute. That's the word from the October update of the World Economic Outlook report, produced by the International Monetary Fund ahead of its annual meeting of finance ministers and central bank governors in Washington next week. The IMF projected global growth in April at 2.8%, at the time citing a reordering of policy priorities and uncertainties and intensifying downside risks amid escalating trade tensions and financial market adjustments. But as Sherwin Bryce-Peace reports, the global economy is adjusting, pointing to some extremes of higher tariffs being tempered amid subsequent trade deals and resets, but warns that the overall environment remains volatile.
The latest growth rate of 3.2% for 2025 is an upward revision, with the IMF saying the global economy is adjusting to a landscape reshaped by new policy measures, most notably from the United States, with a warning that prolonged uncertainty, more protectionism, and labor supply shocks could reduce growth. Pierre-Olivier Gourinchas is the IMF's chief economist.
Global growth is holding steady despite major policy shifts. The increase in tariffs and its effect has been smaller than expected so far. This is thanks to new trade deals, multiple exemptions, and the private sector's agility in rerouting supply chains. As a result, global growth is now projected at 3.2% this year and 3.1% next year, only a modest downgrade from last October. Yet, beneath the steady surface, complex forces are at work. Easy financial conditions and a weaker dollar, fiscal stimulus in some major countries, and surging artificial intelligence investment are all shaping activity and inflation dynamics.
With the rapid growth of and investment in artificial intelligence looming large, particularly in more developed economies, some concern of a potential dot-com style correction as experienced in the late 1990s. That could be triggered by disappointing results on earnings and productivity gains in the sector, as Gourinchas explains.
Risks remain tilted to the downside. The AI surge could trigger a sharp market correction if profit expectations do not materialize. Fiscal pressures are mounting across many countries and may interact with financial market fragilities to further raise borrowing costs and increase rollover risks. And institutional credibility, particularly central bank independence, faces growing political pressures that could de-anchor inflation expectations. Still, there are upside risks too. A faster resolution of trade tensions, an associated reduction in uncertainty, as well as the potential for significant productivity gains from AI, could all give global growth a meaningful boost.
Policymakers urge to restore confidence through credible, transparent and sustainable policies, with trade diplomacy paired with macroeconomic adjustments, as the WEO report calls for central bank independence to be preserved.
That report by Sherwin Bryce Peace, and it takes us to 7:30 Central African Time. Let's get our news headlines now. Here's Djalani Tulo Mwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, the United Nations has expressed concern about any unconstitutional changes of power in Madagascar. Local media in Sudan are reporting that food supplies in Al Fasher are running out. This after the paramilitary rapid support forces completed a drone and military attack on a displacement camp in the capital of North Darfur state. And finally, Hamas has handed over the bodies of 4 more hostages that were held in Gaza. This brings the number of bodies to 8. I will have details on these and other stories at 8 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sport. And I can tell you there's a couple of African nations that are really jubilant about the prospect of being at the World Cup finals. South Africa, I think, qualifying properly for the first time since France in the 90s, and Cape Verde. Is it Seychelles or Cape Verde? Seychelles, hey? Let's find out from Fikile Lingwati who's going to. I think it's Cape Verde. I think it's Cape Verde. Fikile Lingwati has the details. Good morning.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Peter, once again. It's Cape Verde for the first time in their history. But now it's us. South Africa. 15 years since South Africa last appeared in the FIFA World Cup finals, and some 23 years since they last qualified for the showpiece. Bafana Bafana will be back at football's top table. South Africa beat Rwanda 3-0 in their final CAF Group C World Cup qualifier at the Mbombela Stadium in South Africa's Mpumalanga province to top the group and progress to the World Cup finals in North America next year. Bafana Bafana coach Hugo Broos is a relieved man at the end of the match.
It feels wonderful. We all knew that we could do it. We believed in ourselves, and I think you saw it from the beginning of the game that we wanted to win that game.
Broos says football will never be the same in South Africa. He was speaking after becoming the first coach to qualify the senior men's team for 2 back-to-back Africa Cup of Nations tournaments as well as the World Cup.
I heard somebody saying on the pitch after the game, everybody laughed with Bafana Bafana. We were a joke, and now we are there. We are on a high level, and everybody respects us. And this again is not the work only for me. So at last, I think that this is something that this nation needed. A different way to look at football.
And Nigeria qualified for the playoffs of the 2026 World Cup after they cruised to a 4-0 victory over Benin at the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium last night. Victor Osimhen was the star of the show as he plundered a hat-trick before Frank Onyeka added gloss to the scoreline with a 4th goal at the death. The Super Eagles came into the clash trailing group leaders Benin by 3 points in 3rd place after both of them won their matches on the 10th of October. And in athletics, it's Olympic 200-meter champion Litsile Tebogo and World 400-meter champion Colin Kibina Tsipi have qualified for the newly introduced World Athletics Ultimate Championship meet, the inaugural event to be held in Budapest, Hungary from the 11th to the 13th of September 2026 will offer a record-setting prize pot of $10 million, the largest ever offered in a single track and field event. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter? Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard? Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126. And we will call you back so you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age. I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk. It's your chance to air your views. Share your opinion. Engage with the community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
So who are your bets on for this World Cup soccer-wise? I know it's still a bit early to tell.
You know what? It's the usual suspects. And it's countries like Spain, countries like Germany, that always seem to bubble up.
So you don't predict any surprises this time around?
I look, you know what? I'm just happy that new teams are coming through.
Yeah.
The way they're planning it, it's going to be bigger than the ones before. So there'll be more teams participating, and that probably makes it more global. So a lot of people, even if they go out in the first round, at least will be there and participate.
So we're going to get our soccer jerseys ready for the weekends now to wear those. Okay. Let's
take the vuvuzelas there.
As we discuss soccer matters, moving on from sports is now business news time. Here's Buntle Headbush with our news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Asanda. Good morning. Our top business story at this hour: a group of Kenyan non-governmental organizations have accused the government of stoking economic inequality and driving up national debt. In a written briefing to the head of the International Monetary Fund, they've urged the IMF and World Bank to incorporate demands for better governance in Kenya and not just focus on economic targets in their assistance programs, because the country's fiscal crisis was as a result of governance neglect and institutional erosion. This is despite the fact that President William Ruto's government has claimed credit for staving off a crippling default. The Kenyan government is in the process of negotiating a new financial program with the IMF. The African Parliamentary Network on Illicit Financial Flows and Taxation Continental Conference is underway in Johannesburg, South Africa. The conference brings together parliamentarians, policymakers, and experts from across the continent to reflect on progress made and explore ways to strengthen Africa's fight against illicit financial flows, and comes at the back of the just concluded 13th Pan-African Conference on Illicit Financial Flows and Taxation. Executive Director at the Tax Justice Network Africa, Chennai Mukumba, elaborates on some of the issues that have been highlighted at the conference.
Over the past 10 years, we've been able to really profile the magnitude and seriousness of the loss of illicit financial flows from the continent. So prior to the publication of the report we were celebrating last week, there was almost no recognition of the fact that as a continent we were losing all of these resources, and it was primarily due to the practices of multinational corporations on the continent, right? So the first thing that the report did was flag this as a mainstream issue that we need to all address.
Egypt has a plan for the drilling of 480 exploratory oil wells on the basis of investments totaling $5.7 billion over the next 5 years. This as the country seeks to reverse declining production. Egypt has announced agreements with international energy companies on oil and gas exploration over recent months, including an agreement with oil giants Eni and BP to start exploration activities in the Mediterranean Sea. A statement from the ministry does not give detail on the source of the investment, but reveals that 101 wells were scheduled for 2026. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says Cape Town in the Western Cape province has done worse than the average of all metros in the country in making a positive impact on the lives of its residents. Ramaphosa was replying to a question in the National Council of Provinces. The president cited Stats SA data and a budget analysis of the city of Cape Town, which found that in the decade between 2011 and 2022, Cape Town performed worse than the average of all metros in expanding access to services such as refuse removal, pipe water, electricity, and flush toilets. He said that while the metro has performed well in terms of its audited financial statements, what matters is the impact on people's lives.
On a per capita investment in infrastructure and service delivery, it is significantly lower in townships and informal settlements. It may well say that it has spent billions, but on a per capita basis, it continues to follow the racial patterns of the past. Because in the past, the apartheid government spent more money in white areas than it did in black areas. And the analysis says this is continuing right here in Cape Town.
The United States has seized more than $15 billion worth of cryptocurrency. This is part of measures taken by Washington and London against a Cambodia-based network of scam centres. The BBC's Caroline Hawley has more details.
The UK government says the scam centres operate in Cambodia, Myanmar and across Southeast Asia. It says the centres in disused casinos or purpose-built compounds fake job adverts to attract workers who are then forced to carry out online fraud under threat of torture. Scams often include convincing victims to join fraudulent cryptocurrency investment schemes. The UK government said the masterminds behind them were ruining the lives of vulnerable people and buying up London homes to store their money.
And now taking a look at the indicators, $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,460 naira. In Botswana, the dollar is trading at 13 pula 28. Kenya at 128 shilling and 28. And in Zambia, it's at 22 kwacha 63. Moving to the BRICS countries, $1 US in Brazil is trading at 5 rial 47. In Russia, it's trading at 79 rubles 98. India, 88 rupees 76. China is trading at 7 yuan 12. And in South Africa, it's at 17 rand 38 cents this morning. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,188 per ounce, platinum at $1,666 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $62.20 a barrel this morning. And those are your business news. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Hetbush.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. A fresh morning, a fresh perspective. Stay tuned to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Now, nearly 80% of township businesses in South Africa remain unregistered. That's one of the findings in Standard Bank's first Township Informal Economy report titled Powering Growth from the Ground Up. Just to let you know that in South Africa, a township refers to an urban residential area that was originally established during apartheid to house black communities, often on the outskirts of cities and towns. Now, today, these townships, such as Soweto, where the report was launched, have evolved into vibrant hubs of entrepreneurship, creativity, and economic resilience. The report highlights how these areas represent some of the country's most dynamic yet underserved markets. Tutongobeni compiled this report.
Standard Bank's inaugural Township Informal Economy reports found that South Africa's informal sector is predominantly led by males aged between 35 to 54, deeply embedded in their communities and often operating from homes or streets to minimize costs. Retail, transport, and hospitality are the dominant sectors, though a striking 80% of businesses are unregistered, hindering access to formal funding and markets. While 60% of businesses report growth, many face stagnation or decline due to rising input costs, limited market access, and poor financial planning. Head of Enterprise and Supplier Development at Standard Bank, Naledzana Musomani, says the report cemented a few things.
So I think for me the report cemented quite a few things. We always talk about how SMEs create jobs, but in this report, of the 250 SMEs that were interviewed, they created 7,500 jobs. So it's a true reflection of the impact that this economy has on economic development.
The survey was conducted across Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, Limpopo, and Northwest provinces, covered enterprises with annual turnovers ranging from $5,760,000 to $2.8 million. The report confirms that the township economy scale, while also identifying critical constraints that limit growth and inclusion. Musumani says women-owned businesses are marginalized.
It also highlighted another painful truth in that women-owned businesses are marginalized. I think Kani touched on it in her feedback, but the fact that this economy is dominated by male-owned businesses, the fact that women-owned businesses in this economy are majority necessity-based, so I'm just doing this for the sake of doing this business. And the fact that I have to really navigate my lifestyle and my social conditions to actually run my business as optimally as possible. It's when you think about where you think we would be from a transformation perspective, it is quite hard-hitting.
Pumla Hlati, Portfolio Head of Inclusive Growth at the United Nations Development Programme South Africa, has welcomed the report and applauded Standard Bank for the work done on this report.
Congratulations to Standard Bank for this groundbreaking research. From the United Nations Development Programme, one of the key things that struck me really is how sophisticated this market is, as opposed to the assumptions that we make. First of all, from a locational point of view, you assume that township is equal to disorder and informality is equal to disorder. But when you read the report and you see the dynamic and the dynamism of these businesses, even the businesses we actually visited today, they're quite sophisticated in terms of their reach, in terms of their markets, but also in how they are starting to use digital platforms.
Meanwhile, founder of the fashion brand Thesis Lifestyle, Wandile Zondo, says infrastructure is needed to address the challenges for township businesses.
We've never had formal loan to financial institution. We've always really established a business from one store in Fudo to 4 stores and an online store. It still is a problem to this day. Coming from a township, we are considered as a township business, so I think that just downscales you, it puts you at risk. You don't have assets, but you do have cash flow that's moving in and out. So I think also the red tape and the bureaucracy that's within the financial institutions, it needs to be adapted to the township business. It needs to be tailored to the township business, and also the government needs to come in. Not asking the government to think that it must give money, but it must set up infrastructure to make sure that businesses can thrive.
The report says for these businesses to thrive, critical needs like marketing, support, operational funding, skills training, and improved infrastructure must be in place. For Channel Africa News, I am Tutongobeni in Johannesburg.
Tuesday, the 14th of October, Tanzania marked the 26th anniversary of the passing of the nation's founding father, Mwalimu Julius Nyerere. The day is a reflection of his enduring legacy in fostering unity, peace and stability, values that remain essential as the country prepares for the general elections on the 29th of October. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere passed away on 14th October in 1999 at the age of 77, but his legacy continues to shape Tanzania's democratic and socio-economic trajectory. To discuss this further, we have on the line Sabatu Nyamsenda, Assistant Lecturer at the University of Dar es Salaam. Sabatu, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. How would you describe the legacy of Julius Nyerere, the founding father of Tanzania?
I think he's one of the most iconic leaders of African freedom. He remains a beacon of African unity. But also in Tanzania, he's very popular. He actually still rules the country from the grave. So he's a symbol of social justice for the masses because of the type of reforms that took place in Tanzania under his leadership. He's also the most visionary leader. He's a symbol of unity. So people remember him for the things that he did, not only for Tanzania, but for Africa and the world in general.
How would you describe his leadership style? And I mean, as far as he didn't just dream of a Tanzania that's united, he built it.
Yes, exactly. He was a leader of unquestionable integrity, a very selfless leader, because for him, leadership was for service and not for selfishness. But also, I think amongst the African leaders, he was among the very few that managed to form a united nation, African nation, out of tribes. First, in terms of Tanganyika, if you look at our neighbors, and I'm not speaking this negatively, but most of the neighboring countries have problems in terms of they are not as peaceful as Tanzania. Tanzania still remains united. The people are not divided according to tribal divisions. There is a language that unites Tanzania. So he managed to forge a united nation out of different 125 tribes. But also he went further. As a symbol of African unity, Tanzania stands as a successful unity. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have problem, but it's a union between two sovereign African states that agreed to surrender their sovereignty to form the United Republic of Tanzania. So that is also part of his legacy.
He's quoted as having said, "Democracy is not a bottle of Coca-Cola which you can import. Democracy should develop according to each country's conditions," end quote. How are conditions in Tanzania ahead of the country's elections coming up in just 2 weeks?
Yeah. Back now to Nyerere before I talk about the general elections, is that in the 60s, because he wanted to form a united, a country that is united, it was essential for him to pursue reforms that were critical for building a united and stable nation. And in that sense, a single party was a vehicle for that. But after some years, when he was out of power, he took a leading role in fighting for the resumption of multi-party democracy. So in the 90s, he was one of the leading spokespersons for leading leaders pushing for a multi-party democracy. And he actually wanted the ruling party to compete, we should have competitive and liberal democracy in the country. Now that he's gone, we have actually somewhat regressed. If you follow the events in Tanzania, for instance, yes, it's true that we are having a general election in 2 weeks, but the main opposition party has boycotted the elections, and the main opposition leader is in prison. And therefore, it's an election that is going to take place where the ruling party is going to return back to power almost unchallenged. Not because it's still the strongest party, but the votes that it's going to get do not necessarily reflect its strength, because these elections are largely uncompetitive.
Some analysts agree with you that the country is becoming increasingly repressive, and they say that the current president, Samia Suluhu Hassan, who's seeking re-election, increasingly resembles her predecessor, John Pombe Magufuli. What do you make of this?
I wouldn't want to mention names for different reasons. Partly also, it's not very safe for me. I mean, to make this interview and then tomorrow you don't see me.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is goes deeper than individuals. We have a problem of authoritarianism, which should be traced back to the type of state that we have. It's a colonial state whose relationship with the people is increasingly authoritarian. And the sliding to increased authoritarianism is not only limited to Tanzania. I mean, look across the region, whether in Uganda, Rwanda, or other countries, they have been having such problems where the state is increasingly becoming oppressive, and the ruling class is also using more coercion, rigging election in order to stay in power. So she might, as a president, the current president might have, and I'm not trying to absolve her because she's a participant within the system. But the problem, what I'm saying is that the problem runs deeper than just individuals. Because when it was under Magufuli, for instance, those who attributed the increased authoritarianism to an individual were so happy when he died, and they thought it would usher to a liberalized political space, and that didn't happen. Well, it did briefly for a few months, but increasingly the state became even more authoritarian. The reforms that we have to push, we have to get the problem right. So to me, the problem is that the problem is the type of state that we inherited from the colonial regime. It's an authoritarian state. We have had few years of multi-party democracy, but it was not like a perfect multi-party democracy. The ruling party was a dominant party, and the space, how do they call it? The playing field was not leveled. So there was no level playing field between the ruling party and opposition parties, and the problem has grown even further. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to fight for democracy. One of the quotes that we have from Mwalimu Nyerere to inspire those who are fighting for democracy and social justice, it was in the 70s when students were demonstrating. And of course, Mwalimu sent the riot police, Mwalimu Nyerere, the riot police to beat them up and send them back to their homes. But then when he used to go back to campus to debate with students, when students asked him, "You're talking about democracy, and when we demonstrate, you send the riot police to tear gas us. So which democracy are you talking about?" He said, "Of course, as the head of state, when you demonstrate, I'll send the riot police. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't fight for democracy. Democracy is not given on a silver platter. You have to fight for it." So that means we should continue with the fight. And I hope, because it's a struggle between justice and authoritarianism, and eventually, however long the struggle is going to take, justice will prevail.
In that fight then for democracy and the continuation thereof, what would you say is the best way that Tanzanians can pay homage to the legacy of Julius Nyerere during these elections in action?
So they still do. I think the best way, Tanzanians, each country has its own style of fighting and pushing for reforms. So if you look at, I mean, I follow politics in South Africa. The modes of protest in South Africa mostly open. Like, you'd see the EFF would organize marches and people get into the streets. In Kenya, our neighboring countries, it's in the same. In Tanzania, it's somewhat different. The people, you might not necessarily see the people in the streets, but that doesn't mean that they are not fighting. They fight in their own way, using everyday forms of resistance where they defy power without necessarily confronting it openly. through direct action. And that also leads to reforms. So people are fighting in different ways. You have, but I would just give an example. Recently, because democracy is beyond elections, actually, that's what Mwalim also taught us. It's beyond the question of elections. It also means putting power in the hands of the people. So I'll just give just one example.
We don't actually have time, Sabato. We're going to have to leave it there and cut you short. Sorry.
No worries.
But yes, we get the main gist of what you are saying and how we need to reflect on the legacy of Julius Nyerere. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
Sabato Nyamsenda is Assistant Lecturer at the University of Dar es Salaam. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's 8 o'clock Central African time. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. This is the last hour of Rise and Shine right here on Channel Africa, where we bring you the African perspective. We're broadcasting live from our studios in Johannesburg, South Africa on www.channelafrica.co.za. Top of the morning to you. I'm Peter Ndoro.
And my name is Asanda Beda. Very good morning and thank you for staying with us. In this hour, we go to Madagascar as promised earlier, and the country is facing a major political crisis there after Parliament voted to impeach President Andry Rajoelina, who also reportedly fled the country. We'll get analysis on that, as well as other stories coming up. Let's get our news first. Here's Jolani Tulo Mwepe with that, and then Fikile Lingwati will give us sports headlines after.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. The United Nations has expressed concern about any unconstitutional changes of power in Madagascar. Madagascar's military earlier said it has seized power while President Andry Rajoelina, who earlier reportedly fled the country, insisted he was staying in power. UN spokesperson Farhan Haq says if a coup was in fact underway, the UN would stand against it.
We would be concerned about any unconstitutional change of power in Madagascar, but we'll continue to monitor the developments there. The Secretary General, as you know, has called on all Malagasy stakeholders to work together to reach a peaceful settlement to the ongoing crisis and its root causes. We're trying to see exactly what happens once the dust is settled. Obviously, if there is a coup underway, we would stand against that. We're concerned about any unconstitutional changes of power. From our standpoint as the UN, we're ready to collaborate with Madagascar, along with the African Union and the Southern African Development Corporation, for the restoration of peace and stability in the country.
Local media in Sudan are reporting that food supplies in Al Fasher are running out. This after the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces completed a drone and artillery attack on a displacement camp in the capital of North Darfur State. The city has been under siege since April. The BBC's Gillian Badford has the story.
Reports emerged at the weekend that the food kitchens that had become essential to keeping the civilian population alive were closing down. The scant supplies of smuggled food that had been reaching Al Fasher were disrupted once the berm was completed. Even supplies of animal fodder have dwindled, and civilians in Al Fasher have been eating these for some time. Only the armed forces in the city are being resupplied via airdrops by Khartoum. All the while, the RSF's deadly offensive continues as it tries to take the last city outside its control in Western Sudan.
South Africa's suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya claims that there's a smear campaign to prevent him from vying for the vacant position of Hawks boss or the National Police Commissioner when it becomes vacant. He alleges that those involved in the campaign include National Police Commissioner Fani Masimola and KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Sibiya appeared before Parliament's ad hoc committee looking at concerns of national security.
It is so unfortunate, the situation in which I find myself, that when your colleagues are saying they're pushing you out and they make life so difficult and they even paint your name so black out there to the public and everything in such a way that they create an irretrievably broken relationship. Now I must be the one who end up suffering. And then I also have a family. I also have kids and they are small.
The Limpopo government in South Africa says the process of identifying the bodies of people killed in a recent bus crash is continuing. 17 of the 43 bodies of the people have been identified. The bus crashed after the driver lost control in the Chambudzi Valley, a mountainous stretch of the N1 near Louis Trichardt on Sunday afternoon. The bus was travelling from Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape province and was supposed to pass through Zimbabwe on its way to Malawi. Pathologists are expected to conclude their post-mortem examinations today, the Premier's spokesperson Tilivali Moaba.
17 families have arrived at Chilizini Hospital to identify their loved ones. The identification process will continue on Wednesday for the remaining families. Identification team has taken photographs of all the deceased, and the provincial government is encouraging families who are searching for their loved ones to visit the hospital as part of family identification. It is anticipated that by Wednesday, the forensic pathology teams will have concluded with the post-mortem examinations.
Hamas has handed over the bodies of 4 more hostages that were held in Gaza. This brings the number of bodies to 8. The bodies are being transferred to a forensic institute in Tel Aviv for identification. There was anger in Israel on Monday when Hamas returned just 4 of the 28 bodies held in Gaza throughout the war. US President Donald Trump spoke about the issue shortly before the latest handover.
They misrepresented because we were told they had 26, 24 of dead hostages, if we can use those terms. And it seems as though they don't have that because we're talking about a much lesser number. But that's a very tough subject. I want them back.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, Ivory Coast and Senegal claim their places at the World Cup. And Tony Gizozi, Ryan Rickelton partnership rescues Proteas on day 3 against Pakistan. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
From Cape to Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam, rise and shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda on Channel Africa.
Right, let's focus now on Madagascar, and it's a pretty fluid situation. Even as we speak, things are changing rapidly. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina has reportedly fled the country, and this comes after the President's office announced that Rajoelina would address the nation on Monday evening, and that was the 13th of October. Youth-led demonstrations erupted in the former French colony in late September over water and power shortages, and they've since escalated into an uprising over broader grievances, including corruption, bad governance, and the lack of basic services. And there's also been calls for the president to resign. Well, the country's parliament has impeached him.
We just want one thing, it's Rajoelina move.
Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina is facing widespread protests calling for his resignation as Malagasy citizens grow increasingly disillusioned with his government. This comes as police and protesters clashed again this past weekend, marking the 4th week of protests that began in late September. Inspired by youth movements in Kenya and Nepal, these demonstrations are the largest the island nation has faced in recent years. Rajoelina responded to the unrest by saying he was ready to listen and find solutions to problems facing the poor island nation.
There are associations, agencies, and countries that finance this movement, and there are those who plan to seize power without going through elections, but simply take power and seek only to exploit Madagascar's mines as in other African countries. No one will benefit from destroying the country. That is why I'm telling you that if I'm here, if I'm standing here, I'm ready to listen, and above all, I'm ready to lend a hand to find a solution for the country.
However, protests continued, with Madagascar's CAPSAT military unit announcing that it was taking command of the nation's armed forces, a day after joining anti-government protests that have gripped the country. Military official Colonel Solo Ina Rampanarivo.
The agency is the restoration of public order and the daily lives of all Malagasy people. We, the military, stand for the homeland. This is why the command of the Malagasy army, whether air, land or sea, is starting from here, from the CAPSAT camp.
Protesters remain undeterred, saying they won't stop until Rajolina steps down.
She says, in 12 years, no one has ever listened to us, which is why we are now insisting on the president's departure.
I think it will continue because our problem has not yet been resolved. Our problem is that President Rajolina does not want to leave, even though the people demanding his departure.
Since the protests began, the United Nations has reported that at least 22 people have died, and on Sunday, 3 individuals were injured near the CAPSAT barracks following gunfire. Bonolo Maribe, SABC News.
So let's attempt to understand the political and diplomatic implications there in Madagascar then, and what everything means for the country as Madagascar faces a major political crisis after Parliament voted to impeach President Andry Rajoelina, who reportedly fled the country following weeks of youth-led protests. An elite army unit, CAPSAT, has broken ranks, taken control and suspended key institutions, promising a transitional government ahead of new elections. We're now joined by Ambassador Gert Grobler, who is former South African ambassador to Madagascar. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. How are you this morning?
Good morning, and to all the listeners as well. Thank you.
From your experience on Madagascar, how significant is the impeachment of President Rajoelina and the military takeover in the country's political history?
Madagascar, I spent 4 years there as South Africa's ambassador from 2012 to 2016. Madagascar has always had a bit of a troubled history. In the 60s, when it became independent from France, actually right through to the let's say 2012, 2013, 2014, when SADC actually stepped in to restore constitutional normalcy and democracy. So for a while, things worked out okay in Madagascar. But I'm afraid what we are now seeing with the recent developments, with the start of the GZ protests in late September, the subsequent developments, the president tried to address the issue by dissolving parliament, hoping that would satisfy the protesters. It's mainly the youth, that would be acceptable to them. They said, no, we want you, President Rajoelina, to go. So subsequently, and of course, what was always a great concern was the role of the military. I actually, when this thing ensued in late September, beginning of October, I was really concerned about what the military was going to do. And in fact, the military then, through one of the elite units in the army, CAPSAT, decided that they are going to join with the protesters, and they have subsequently, of course, announced that they will be in power for 2 years. And they've dissolved a number of the institutions, like the Senate, like the High Court of Justice, High Constitutional Court, and so forth. So The bottom line is this is not good news for Madagascar. The country has suffered. You have about 75% of the people in the country who live under serious poverty. So what is now happening actually takes Madagascar back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and it is just hope that there could be some form of inclusive dialogue, whether it's through SADC or whether it's with the AU, with European countries, to restore normality in the country.
So on that then, how should we understand the army's involvement in the politics of Madagascar from a diplomatic perspective, as we touch on CAPSAT, the elite army unit having taken control?
Well, President Rajoelina, and it's still alleged by many that he had the support of the military in 2009 when there was a coup in Madagascar in which he took over power for a while. So the point is that the military has always played an important role in the developments of Madagascar. And of course now, with the military turning against their president, suspending all these democratic constitutional institutions which they have, and with President Rajoelina having left the country, no one apparently quite knows where he is. There's speculation that the French removed him from Antananarivo, or wherever. So all this does not augur well for political stability, for economic growth, which has always been a huge challenge for Madagascar. So for the foreseeable future, we can just hope that there will be some form of negotiation, some form of dialogue. But right at the moment, the situation in Madagascar does not look very good.
Ambassador, this is Peter Ndoro. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. When you arrived in Madagascar 2012, Andre Rajoelina, I think, was the head of a transitional authority in the country. He'd been mayor of Antananarivo. I'm trying to figure out what went wrong for him, because he's young and a lot of what appealed to young people he represented. And it seems that it's the same young people that have ousted him. Did he forget where he came from, do you think? What was it? Because he did a lot in terms of urban renewal, I'm told. And this is what attracted him to, young people attracted to themselves to him. What do you think changed from this popular mayor of Antananarivo to this now rejected president?
Yes, indeed. President Rajoelina was the mayor of Antananarivo, and as I said, there was speculation at the time about a coup against President Ravalomanana, who was one of the former presidents, and with the involvement of President Rajoelina and the military. And then there was a period where he was a transitional head, and then through the efforts of SADC and the AU, there was an initiative which I was part of to restore constitutional normalcy and democracy in the country. And that led to election, although Ravalomanana and Rajoelina didn't run in that election in 2014, that was when the former President Harry Rajamampianana was elected. But in this, and then of course it went on to the election of President Rajoelina later, up to now. The problem is that the country has always suffered economic challenges. As I said, many people in that country do not have electricity, or 30% of the country do not have electricity. Water was an increasing problem. So, and now a lot of these younger people, in the context of the GZ, have now decided this is enough. And whereas they maybe supported Rajoelina in the 2009, 2010, 2011, I think there is a increasing frustration, and people are upset about the not only economic situation, but also there were a lot of allegations about corruption, about mismanagement. And of course, President Rajoelina did a number of good things in the country, but I'm afraid that the regression in this, the economy and the state of the status of the economic status of people of Madagascar led to this protest.
How much influence do you think France has had over time? I mean, as soon as his time was coming to an end, Rajoelina, we hear and we believe that he was whisked off in a French helicopter. In your time, was the French influence still significant, and do you think France's hand is still there?
Yeah, that is unfortunately true. I mean, if one simply looks at France's track record on the African continent, they don't let go easily. And I think there are a number of examples on the continent, but particularly in Madagascar, the French, the government officials, the aid that they gave Madagascar played an important role in determining the political, economic developments in the country. And of course, Rajoelina is known to have had close relations with France. He was recently elected, or him and Madagascar was recently elected as the chair of SADC, in fact, 2 months ago. And there was a lot of speculation and controversy at the time that Rajoelina is actually a French citizen. He only has a French citizenship, which probably could create all kinds of problems for SADC. And of course, and we can just hope that SADC will continue to focus on Madagascar together with the African Union and Europe maybe to bring about an inclusive dialogue. But the fact is that France has always been a factor in the Malagasy politics and economics.
Ambassador Asanda here again, as we talk of France and the region, how is the perception, the international perception of Madagascar affected, especially on the front of diplomatic relations, as we see all of this play out?
Well, unfortunately, it's not good for Madagascar. As I mentioned, in the 60s, 70s, after the independence from France, Madagascar always had an image of an unstable country, of a country where there are likely coups, and they were at the time. And that until about 2011, 12, maybe a little earlier, when SADC and AU became involved to restore constitutional democracy. And it was a success to a large extent, because elections were held, Rajoelina was elected, twice, although there were also concerns at the time with the elections and the way the elections were held. But the bottom line is that the growing economic regression and the standard of living of people in Madagascar led to this riot, and it was triggered, as we all know, by the shortage or the outages of water and electricity, where many people in the country did not have access to, and this triggered this current very serious crisis, which will have in the foreseeable future a very negative impact on Madagascar's image as a destination for investment or tourism, etc.
To a previous point that you made, Rajoelina dissolving parliament, what does it reveal, this move, about the functioning of Madagascar's institutions?
Well, he was under pressure right from the minute the protest riot started at the end of September, and in an attempt to pacify the protesters and to try and save his own position, he decided to dissolve the parliament. And this was, of course, not accepted by the protesters. They wanted Rajoelina to go. And of course, this now further led to what I said earlier on, I was constantly concerned about, is the role of the military. And the military decided they are going to back with CAPSAT, which is a very elite unit within the military, decided that they are going to support President Rajoelina, of course, to support the protest. President Rajoelina then, of course, decided to leave the country. He's in some safe place somewhere. And of course, now the military has taken control for 2 years. They have said that they will be in charge for 2 years. They've also dissolved a number of the Senate, as I said, the High Court of the International High Court, and a number of other institutions, which runs counter to democratic and constitutional values of the country. So it's not a very encouraging situation we are seeing at the moment in Madagascar, and I have a great admiration for the country. The people remain resilient and so on, but and President Rajoelina did some good things, but unfortunately, it all, there was a period from, I would say, after the SADC initiative in about 2010 to about 2014, everything has deteriorated, and it's actually taken a step back, or one or two steps back in terms of constitutional normalcy and democracy.
Ambassador, perhaps finally, you mentioned SADC's interventions and also the work that South Africa in particular played and the work that you did. Do you think that South Africa and SADC could step in now and assist? And what role could be played by South Africa and SADC?
That's a very good question, and the sense is that SADC and South Africa and the AU, for that matter, needs to step forward. as I mentioned, SADC was elected as the chair of SADC. Madagascar was elected as the chair of SADC about 2 months ago. Right now, there have been statements by SADC. There have been statements by the AU, and of course, our own government's statement, in which they also suggested that there be inclusive dialogue. But right now, I don't see any concrete steps towards such a dialogue. And that's the only way that it's going to be able to be solved, is to get all the parties together, get the civil society together. The churches in Madagascar are fairly active and have been active in dialogue in the past. So I hope that in the next few days we will see some indications of attempts or endeavors to bring about a dialogue towards peace and stability in which is a wonderful country. It's a country with huge potential in terms of minerals, in terms of tourism, in terms of agriculture, and one can just hope that the current issues can be solved. But make no mistake, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be a difficult process.
Ambassador, it really has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for sharing your insights about this country that seems to have a lot going for it and potential, but also challenges to overcome. Thanks so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
That was Ambassador Gert Grobler, who was South Africa's former ambassador to Madagascar between 2012 and 2016, giving us his take on the current situation.
Let's now check in with news headlines as we say good morning to Jwalani Tulo Ngwepe. It's 8:30 Central African.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Asanda. Good morning. Making headlines, African jurists are demanding the urgent adoption of artificial intelligence to protect whistleblowers. Local media in Sudan are reporting that food supplies in Al Fasher are running out, and 3 African countries, including Mauritius, have joined 13 other states elected to serve 3 terms on the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva starting in next year, extending its current term on the council, which was due to expire at the end of 2025. I will have details on these and other stories at 9 o'clock.
SABC News headlines. The African Perspective.
Right, let's catch you up with the sports, and keeping us informed as always is Figile Lingwat.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And we bet off with cricket news. Tony Dizozi notched up his second test 100 on day 3 of the first test against Pakistan in Lahore, and credited that to his partnership with Ryan Rickelton on a tough Gaddafi Stadium pitch. Dizozi came in with a team on 80 for 2 in the first innings, and the two put together 94-run stand that helped them to a respectable 269 all out, but still significantly short of the hosts' 378. He hopes they can carry on where they left off and get the team into a strong position.
Yeah, I think on any wicket a partnership is gold, particularly on a wicket like this. As you said, I think it is a bit tough to start. It happened in both innings or all the innings. There is some sort of a collapse because it's tough for the new guy to come in. It's tough for him to get a rhythm, and I think both spinners on each side are pretty good spinners, and these are their favourable conditions. So I think the beginning is the toughest, but hopefully we can, like you said, build a partnership and crack on.
On to football news. Ivory Coast and Senegal claimed Africa's final 2 automatic qualifying spots for the 2026 FIFA World Cup as both sides registered victories yesterday. Senegal claimed a 4-0 home win over Mauritania to secure first place in Group B. A Sadio Mane free kick put the hosts ahead on the stroke of halftime, and the former Liverpool forward slotted in his second before Iliman Ndiaye added a fine solo effort and Habib Diallo rounded off the scoring late on. The Teranga Lions finished the campaign 2 points ahead of DR Congo, who beat Sudan 1-0 thanks to Theo Bongoda's first half strike. And Bafana's 15 years since South Africa last appeared in the FIFA World Cup finals and some 23 years since they last qualified for the showpiece. Bafana will be back at football's top table. South Africa's beat Rwanda 3-0 in the final CAF Group C World Cup qualifier at the Mbombela Stadium to top the group and progress to the World Cup finals in North America next year. Bafana coach Hugo Broos was a relieved man at the end of the match.
It feels wonderful. We all knew that we could do it. We believed in ourselves, and I think it showed from the beginning of the game that we wanted to win that game.
Let's end with athletics. Olympic 200-meter champion Litsile Tebogo and world 400-meter champion Colin Kibina Tsipi have qualified for the newly introduced World Athletics Ultimate Championship meet. The inaugural event, to be held in Budapest, Hungary from the 11th to the 13th of September 2026, will offer a record-setting prize pot of $10 million, the largest ever offered in a single track and field event. According to World Athletics, every athlete lining up in Budapest will be financially rewarded for their performance, with the champion in each event taking home the top prize of $150,000. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figure Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Right, it's time for your business news with Buntle Headbush.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thanks, Peter, and a very good morning to our listeners. Our top business story at this hour: a group of Kenyan non-governmental organizations have accused the government of stoking economic inequality and driving up national debt. In a written briefing to the head of the International Monetary Fund, they've urged the IMF and World Bank to incorporate demands for better governance in Kenya and not just focus on economic targets in their assistance programs, because the country's fiscal crisis was as a result of governance neglect and institutional erosion. This is despite the fact that President William Ruto's government has claimed credit for staving off a crippling default. The Kenyan government is in the process of negotiating a new financial program with the IMF. The African Parliamentary Network on Illicit Financial Flows and Taxation Continental Conference is underway in Johannesburg, South Africa. The conference brings together parliamentarians, policymakers and experts from across the continent to reflect on progress made and explore ways to strengthen Africa's fight against illicit financial flows, and comes at the back of the just concluded 13th Pan-African Conference on Illicit Financial Flows and Taxation. Executive Director at the Tax Justice Network Africa, Chennai Mukumba, elaborates on some of the issues that have been highlighted at the conference.
Over the past 10 years, we've been able to really profile the magnitude and seriousness of the loss of illicit financial flows from the continent. So prior to the publication of the report we were celebrating last week, there was almost no recognition of the fact that as a continent, we were losing all of these resources. And it was primarily due to the practices of multinational corporations on the continent, right? So the first thing that the report did was flag this as a mainstream issue that we need to all address.
Egypt has a plan for the drilling of 480 exploratory oil wells on the basis of investments totaling 5.7 billion over the next 5 years. This as the country seeks to reverse declining production. Egypt has announced agreements with international energy companies on oil and gas exploration over recent months, including an agreement with oil giants Eni and BP to start exploration activities in the Mediterranean Sea. A statement from the ministry does not give detail on the source of the investment, but reveals 101 wells were scheduled for 2026. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says Cape Town in the Western Cape province has done worse than the average of all metros in the country in making a positive impact on the lives of its residents. Ramaphosa was replying to a question in the National Council of Provinces. The president cited Stats SA data and a budget analysis of the city of Cape Town, which found that in the decade between 2011 and 2022, Cape Town performed worse than the average of all metros in expanding access to services such as refuse removal, pipe water, electricity and flush toilets. He said while that metro has performed well in terms of its audited financial statements, what matters is the impact on people's lives.
On a per capita investment in infrastructure and service delivery, it is significantly lower in townships and informal settlements. It may well say that it has spent billions, but on a per capita basis, it continues to follow the racial patterns of the past. Because in the past, the apartheid government spent more money in white areas than it did in black areas. And the analysis says this is continuing right here in Cape Town.
The United States has seized more than $15 billion worth of cryptocurrency. This is part of measures taken by Washington and London against a Cambodia-based network of scam centres. The BBC's Caroline Hawley has more details.
The UK government says the scam centres operate in Cambodia, Myanmar and across Southeast Asia. It says the centres in disused casinos or purpose-built compounds use fake job adverts to attract workers who are then forced to carry out online fraud under threat of torture. Scams often include convincing victims to join fraudulent cryptocurrency investment schemes. The UK government said the masterminds behind them were ruining the lives of vulnerable people and buying up London homes to store their money.
And now for a look at the indicators, one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,460 naira this morning, and Botswana is trading at 13 pula 28. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling and 28. And in Zambia, it's at 22 kwacha 63. Moving to the BRICS countries, one US dollar in Brazil is trading at 5 real 47 this morning. In Russia, it's at 79 rubles 98. India, 88 rupees 76. China is trading at 7 yuan 12, and in South Africa it's at 17 rand 38 cents this morning. It's a bit weaker. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodity, gold is trading at $4,188 per ounce. It's held on to its gains. And platinum also higher at $1,666 per ounce this morning, while Brent crude oil is at $62.20 a barrel. And those are your business news. For any business news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Bontle Headbush.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Got something to say? Are you passionate about issues that matter?
Do you have a voice that deserves to be heard?
Well, we've got the perfect platform for you. Call in or drop us a WhatsApp on +27 63 406 9126.
And we will call you back.
So you could have your say and be part of the conversation.
30 years of age, I just turned 30 on the 15th of November. So yeah, that's who I am, you know.
It's not just talk, it's your chance to air your views. Share your opinion. Engage with a community that values your perspective. Follow us on our social media. Visit our website at www.channelafrica.co.za and get ready to share your views on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Good morning starts here. Rise and shine on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
So we have news just in at 8:44 Central African Time on Rise and Shine. It is reported that former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Odinga has died. The state is still to confirm the news that Odinga died in an Indian hospital where he was undergoing treatment. India media reporting that he had been admitted to this eye hospital called the Sri Hariam Ayurvedic Eye Hospital 5 days ago, having been accompanied by his daughter Rosemary Odinga.
Yeah, but we must just say that there's not been an official announcement by the state at this stage. So whilst reports in Reuters, for example, and Indian newspapers are saying that this is what's happened, there's not been an official announcement by the Kenyan government, the Kenyan authorities, but it is believed that he has passed away of a cardiac arrest, is what we're being told.
And 5 days ago as well was speculation happening in Kenya when a photograph was circulating on social media and speculation arose, of course, about the ill health of the former Kenyan Prime Minister and that the Kenyan authorities, the political parties specifically saying it's fake news and that we should wait and get confirmation on that. So one wonders what was known really about the Odinga's health and the state of his health at the time.
Yeah, we'll keep on top of that story for you, and we're trying to get hold of our correspondents in Kenya just to get a sense of where we are with that. But as we're saying, initial reports are that Raila Odinga has passed away of cardiac arrest in India. No official announcement by the authorities at this time.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
Let's take a look at this story now. Calls for stronger financial support to turn South Africa's Vision 2040 for conservation into reality is taking centre stage this week. Now, the message came out of the sidelines of the G20 Environmental Climate Sustainability Working Group meetings that are currently underway in Cape Town. South Africa, where the Worldwide Fund for Nature hosted a dialogue on financing a new vision for conservation in South Africa. Channel Africa's reporter Lebohang Mabange attended the side event and filed this report.
As global leaders deliberate on environmental priorities at the G20 meetings, parallel discussions are taking place on how to mobilize the financial resources needed to sustain South Africa's natural heritage. The Worldwide Fund for Nature, or WWF South Africa, led one of these key dialogues, focusing on Vision 2040, a national blueprint aimed at integrating conservation into economic development. WWF South Africa CEO Dr. Monet du Plessis said turning this vision into reality will require practical action and strong financial commitment.
WWF, which I speak for, was inspired by Vision 2040, which is not only bold, it's necessary, and we committed to contribute to making it a reality. I look forward to a rich and constructive discussion on how we can get practical about realizing this vision. As you will have heard people say, conservation without money remains conversation. That's what we want to address today.
Speaking at the event, Dr. Howard Hendricks, Managing Executive for Conservation Services at South African National Parks, said Vision 2040 seeks to create living landscapes that link conservation, communities and the economy.
So when Vision 2040 was thought about, it was based on those deep root challenges in the country. And Vision 2040, as much as we will continue to expand our conservation estate, we have to create living landscapes that connect people with nature and with economies. And therefore, where the financing comes in is that financing Vision 2040 is all about investing in the long-term resilience of our environment, but also with the livelihoods of people.
Meanwhile, Nokutula Mene, project management specialist at the United Nations Development Programme, stressed that biodiversity should be treated as a national economic asset rather than a luxury.
South Africa's biodiversity is not only just a nice to have. I'd like to put the case that it is actually an economic asset. Our ecosystems generate almost $500 million each year, which is about 6% of our GDP. And our ecosystems sustain agriculture, water security, rural livelihoods, and underpin a multi-billion-dollar tourism industry. And yet, for some reason, biodiversity has not gained the status of an asset class. For many, it remains something nice to look at.
Mene also warned that funding for biodiversity has been on the decline, which could undermine both environmental and economic resilience if not urgently addressed.
We've actually shown that our biodiversity expenditure has declined in the recent years, even as our global biodiversity framework has become more ambitious. This means our financing gap is going to be larger than what it was in 2018. If left unaddressed, this shortfall will erode our natural capital that underpins both our growth and fiscal stability.
Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Cape Town, South Africa.
Kenya's former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has died. The news of his passing has been confirmed by his political party home, the Orange Democratic Movement, or ODM. It is believed that Odinga died in India, where he was undergoing treatment, and that he suffered a cardiac arrest during a morning walk. Our correspondent in Kenya, Alex Kairi, joins us now to tell us more. Alex, thank you for making time for us.
Thank you very much. And as you said, it's quite a shocking day for us here in Kenya, with the reports that the former Prime Minister has passed away. We are actually waiting for the State House to communicate this formally to the nation, and also his political party, which I can see media houses have already deployed over there to also be able to react to the same. The former Prime Minister's health has been in the news for the last 1 week after it was confirmed that he had traveled to India to seek treatment. But we are still not yet informed of exactly what was being treated. But some unconfirmed reports say that he had undergone some brain surgery, and he was recovering or recuperating over there. And that's when this happened, 4 a.m. rather, local time, that's Kenyan time. And this is the news that has just been happening, but we were waiting for that confirmation, which has come through from the ODM party itself.
He was aged 80, and according to India media, he died of cardiac arrest while he was taking his morning walk at this treatment facility. But that's according to Indian media. What does Kenyan media know at this stage?
Formally, as per the Kenyan media laws, this is only supposed to be confirmed by the family, and usually it only happens to be reported after the family has been informed, and this is why the media is holding back. But so far, that is the news that is already verified but not yet broken to the nation. But so far, according to the social media, it's something that is just waiting to be confirmed. But it is true that he has passed away. The man was aged 80 years, and Raila had not been guarded about his health. When he went to Germany for surgery on the eye, he did inform everybody about it, informed the nation. When he collapsed during an ODM rally a few years back, he also did come out and indicated the same. So I don't think the family and even the ODM party will have any reason to withhold the news, if at all it has happened, because he was very, very open about his health story. And actually, he had also undergone a similar surgery in Germany on his brain. And this is why when he was reported to have traveled to India for treatment, It was initially a controversial thing that was denied by some members of his party, but later on his brother Oburu Odinga came out and confirmed that he had undergone surgery in India and he was recuperating over there. Then now the news that has just happened today.
At this Sarid Hariyam Ayurvedic Eye Hospital, he was accompanied by his daughter, according to Indian reports, Rosemary Odinga. We also understand that the family has issued that they will be having or holding a press conference at around 10 this morning. What do you know about that? Is that true?
It is just maybe to just confirm what the news, but this we're already deploying over there to know what she's going to tell us, the family story, the wife. But it is basically to just break the news so that after that maybe State House will also come on board and the president will also confirm the same and maybe relay the condolence messages to the nation. But this basically is just a confirmation of the worst fears that people have now about his death.
As you said, I mean, accompanying all the speculation with that photograph of Odinga in hospital on social media was the ODM, the party that he led, the Orange Democratic Movement, who came and released a statement saying that that photograph was fake news and accused opposition politicians of a campaign of misinformation. Is the party set to be saying anything at this stage? Are they also planning to address the nation of Kenya?
I think I've lost you.
Okay, I think we've lost Alex. Are you there? Okay, we've lost Alex, but I think we got a bit of information there in terms of what to expect. So more confirmation coming. A press conference is going to be held by the family of Odinga around 10 a.m. this morning. So we'll get more detail. Of course, our condolences going out to that family, as well as the ordinary Kenyans who are in shock, as we heard from Alex.
Very, very sad. And, you know, sadly, his legacy is always going to be the guy that came second.
He tried to run for 5 terms unsuccessfully.
Just never crossed the line. But hugely popular in Kenya. And I think people will be going through his whole legacy thing throughout the course of the day in the next few days. But there's no question that he's deeply imprinted in Kenyan political history and will be remembered for many contributions that he made over time. So keep listening to Channel Africa Radio. We will be following that story and keeping you up to date with developments as they proceed.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go. Good morning starts here. Rise and shine on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Coming up after Rise and Shine is On the Move with Palesa and Benjamin. And Palesa joins us now to tell us what to expect on this Wednesday. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. There's a lot to speak about, as usual, on the Move today. There's a recent report that's come out that the coloured community in South Africa, in the Gauteng province in particular, have disproportionately high feelings of insecurity, social alienation, and economic strain compared to the general provincial averages.
Why?
Well, we're going to find out why. We're going to go deeper into that particular, because I mean, it is. The group in South Africa have a very varying history, a very long history. So we're going to look a little bit at the history itself, because even the term coloured is quite contentious in many parts of the world, even here in South Africa in the community. So we'll be speaking to one of the junior researchers at the Gauteng City Region Observatory to speak about the feelings of coloured people in the province.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? You know, apartheid did a number. Because it divided us into these groups, white, black, coloured and Asian, and created the impression that there was a hierarchy of who was better than the other. And that just filtered through how people treated each other. And I think some of that still is a legacy of today now. And you'll hear it in some of the conversations and the sentiments. They'll say, I'm not black enough, left behind, but we suffered together during apartheid and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see what the dynamic is. I'm fascinated.
Then we move on into the second hour. So, I mean, more Africans, whether entrepreneurs, influencers, professionals, families, are actually moving to Dubai. And there are a lot of issues there because people think that there might be a lot of like tax, escapes of sorts if you go and live in Dubai and you're going to be living a better life. But is it a tax escape or a tax delay? And so we're going to be unpacking what Africans need to understand about residency, double taxation, and the fine print of financial freedom abroad.
Also, it's a really expensive city to live in.
It is.
Accommodation is, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Stay in Joburg.
And then we're going to be wrapping up by speaking about palliative care, something that we usually associate with a much older group of people, right? But today we're going to be focusing on palliative care that is youth-centered because, there are so many illnesses and diseases that can end people up in palliative care. And we don't think about young people in those situations. So we'll be talking about that in today's final hour.
Right, that's On the Move coming up after Rise and Shine.
Edition of Rise and Shine. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Let's do it again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. Central Africa time. I'm Peter Ndoro.
And from me, Asanda Beda, as well, we say goodbye. And we hand you over to the news. Here's Jolani.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Top stories. Asanda, the former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Odinga dies, and a call for an urgent rise in care for neurological conditions. Good morning. I'm Jolani Tulongwebe. We start with breaking news. Former Kenyan Prime Minister Raila Odinga has